Here in City Council meeting 6 p.m. Tuesday, July 18, 2023. City Hall Complex, City Council Chambers. I call this meeting to order. Can you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Mr. Machado, would you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Gerardo, do we have any call to the public? No, sir. Okay. Then we go to presentations. Proclamation, National Buffalo Soldiers Day. And I'll have the Vice Mayor gonna read it for you, the proclamation.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. A proclamation of the City Council of the City of Nogales declaring July 28, 2023 as National Buffalo Soldiers Day in the City of Nogales and July 26, 2023 as the 75th anniversary of the Executive Order 9981. Whereas African American have fought with distinction in all of this country's military engagements, and whereas on July 28, 1866, Congress established a peacetime army, founding 6 new African American units, the 9th, 10th Cavalry, and the 38th, 39th, 40th, and 41st Infantry. Later, the 38th and 41st reorganized as the 25th Infantry, and the 39th and 40th reorganized as the 24th. And whereas the soldiers were nicknamed Buffalo Soldiers by the Native Americans because of their reputation for fighting ferociously to the end in a battle. And whereas Buffalo Soldiers were responsible for escorting settlers, cattle, and railroad crews, exploring and mapping vast areas of the Southwest, and stringing miles of telegraph lines, building roads, serving as national park rangers, and helping in the expansion of the West. And whereas throughout the era of the Indian Wars and beyond, Buffalo Soldiers were posted from Montana to Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and making up approximately 20% of the United States troopers. And whereas these segregated soldiers served valiantly under oppressive conditions and discrimination, and whereas it is important to preserve the history of the Buffalo Soldiers and all of the segregated branches of the U.S. military as we commemorate the sacrifices they have made to the United States. And whereas on July 26, 1948, President Harry S. Truman signed Executive Order 9981, abolishing segregation in the armed forces and ordering full integration of all service branches, and whereas in 1992, Congress passed a law designating July 28th as National Soldiers Day. And now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Nogales does hereby proclaim July 26, 2023 and July 28, 2023 as the 75th anniversary of Executive Order 9981, integrating the Armed Forces and National Buffalo Soldiers Day in the City of Nogales. Nogales urges the citizens of Nogales to celebrate these days to honor and reflect on the significant roles that African Americans have played in the history of the United States and how African Americans have enriched society through their steadfast commitment to promoting freedom, brotherhood, and equality. In witness thereof, we hereunto set my hand and cause to be the affixed Great Seal of the Nogales County of Santa Cruz, Mayor Jorge Maldonado.
Congratulations, and Miss Donna, would you want to say a couple of words, please? And here's the proclamation.
Thank you so much. Oh, may I? Thank you, thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. I will be giving a brief presentation
Okay.
later on, but this is such an honor to receive this proclamation. Our grandfather, Lucius Jackson, was a sergeant in the 25th Infantry at Camp Little over 100 years ago. But our family just discovered he was a Buffalo Soldier about 2 years ago. That was life-changing, and we really wanted to share with the schools, the community, everyone, their major contribution to Nogales and to the United States. And thank you again for this proclamation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can continue with your presentation? Uh-huh.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Maldonado, council, staff, and community. I am Donna Jackson Houston, founder and president of the Nogales Buffalo Soldiers Legacy Association. My grandfather, Lucius Jackson Sr., was a Buffalo Soldier in the 25th Infantry over 100 years ago, stationed at Camp Little. Thank you for allowing us to share with you two historic events occurring next week. The 75th anniversary of Executive Order 9981, ending segregation in the United States military, and National Buffalo Soldiers Day, July 26 and July 28, respectively. On July 26, 1948, President Harry Truman signed Executive Order 9981. This historic move integrated the United States military. It not only transformed the servicemen and servicewomen in the military, but it also integrated and transformed our society. This year marks the 75th anniversary of Executive Order 9981. African Americans have fought for their country as early as the American Revolution. After the Civil War, in 1966, Congress created 6 all-black segregated regiments, later consolidated into 4, and they were known as the Buffalo Soldiers. They played a major role in the westward expansion, building roads, protecting settlers, serving as national park rangers, and fighting in numerous battles, all while contending with challenging terrain, oppressive conditions, and discrimination. Primo?
Hello, everybody can hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Oh, okay, thank you. I told you that we would be back. So, in memory of this, in 1992, Congress passed a law designating July 28th as the National Buffalo Soldiers Day. So what we have done is we have also embraced that day with the Nogales Buffalo Soldier Legacy Association to seek to preserve the memory of not only our grandfather, but also all the infantrymen that were stationed here in Nogales. And it's just a big history. I went to Nogales. I went through the school system here, graduated from Nogales, wrestled with Maldonado, Mayor Maldonado. And we were never told this. So with this, it's great that it's coming to the surface. And I mean, Nogales, you have embraced us, and thank you so much. We really appreciate it. It just makes me feel like I'm back home again, so thank you. I appreciate it. The 10th Cavalry and the 25th Cavalry Infantry served at Camp Little from 1916 to 1933. They were here to secure the border, and also during the Mexican Revolution to kind of keep that from spilling into the U.S. So there's a lot of good history. As we learn, we're slowly peeling back the layers and learning and educating ourselves more and more. As my cousin Donna here said, we found this out 2 years ago. We were here painting the rainbow because my dad used to do the rainbow that's over by the bridge with a plaque. My dad used to do that, so we kind of took over that, and we come and paint it every so often when it needs it. And we're painting, we're like, oh yeah, my grandfather was a Buffalo Soldier, and we're like, oh. She ran back to California. Next thing I know, here we are. So the Nogales resident also, it wasn't just the black soldiers that were here. There were a lot of other soldiers that they had the Pedro Mendoza. He was born in 1902, a native of Mexico, and then we come to find out that the way he joined the army was that he would be granted citizenship in the U.S. So that's something that we never knew also. So that's great that it was another Mexican national that also aided in the Buffalo Soldier history here in Nogales. So all that history, bringing it together and then bringing it to the light, educating schools. We're embracing the schools. We were at a meeting with the superintendents today, talking to them. We're going to get more involved with the schools to bring us to let the kids know what a rich history Nogales has. I mean, it's amazing. And like I said, I wish that me growing up, I knew that my grandfather was in the Army, but he never elaborated how important their role was here. So that's what we're here to do, and we really appreciate your help and all the things that you are doing for us and continue to do. Thank you so much.
And I'm Rayette Jackson, his other half. And so one of my passions as a retired school teacher is to be able to follow through with our mission. The Nogales Buffalo Soldiers Legacy Association is to partner with schools and communities around the nation to educate, inform, and highlight the notable accomplishments of the Nogales Buffalo Soldiers. So it was an awesome honor to be able to meet with Superintendent Canto's staff. We met with multiple principals today and talked a little bit about how we can bring education about the Buffalo Soldiers into the schools. So we've created a few documents that we're going to be sharing with them that teachers will be able to use. We have a website that we're going to be adding some more teacher curriculum so that teachers have easy access, whether it be to click on a link with a video or actual lessons that they can use. We also are really excited. Last year, we were able to provide a scholarship to Grecia Solario from the Nogales High School, and she received a $500 scholarship. And so this next year, our goal is to be able to increase that. And so we've talked with the principals, and we're planning on providing 2 scholarships this next year. So we want to continue to just partner with the schools and help increase the knowledge of the students. Thank you.
He's got a
Can I
question.
ask a question?
Oh, and we're almost wrapping up. Yeah, almost. Excuse me. I'm sorry about that. And the Legacy Association is also collaborating with Camp Naco in Bisbee, Arizona, to support their efforts to preserve and restore the structures that once housed Buffalo Soldiers over 100 years ago. Are you aware that they recently received over $8 million to restore and preserve the adobe buildings and the grounds? So, and also the Buffalo Soldiers from Camp Little, many of them also served at Camp Naco and Fort Huachuca. They just kind of helped each other out along the border. So Camp Naco is hosting an open house on Saturday, August 5th from 9 to 12 o'clock to celebrate these 2 important events. Again, the 75th anniversary of Executive Order 9981, ending segregation in the United States military, and National Buffalo Soldier Day. And we invite council and everyone to attend that. And also, please, we're going to invite you to Pimenta Alta Historical Museum, and Miss Faith is going to tell you more about that.
Okay, Faith Posey, and I'm with the board of the Pimeria Alta Historical Society and have worked rather extensively on the exhibits we have there for Camp Little and the Buffalo Soldiers of Nogales. Now, we have been very honored this week to receive this beautiful sculptural bust of a Buffalo Soldier donated to the museum. And we would be honored if each and every one of you present and council would exhibit, gain a little insight into what actually happened here in Nogales. And then also with the Mingus Memorial, we have the Mingus Memorial on one side, but on the Bajarano Street side, there is some history of African Americans in Nogales, which is kind of a nice little tour. And if the weather drops a little bit, we'd like to see you out there too. The other thing is that this is the 75th year of the founding of the Historical Society, and in the fall, we will be having an event, and we will have more information on that at some point in the near future. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr.
Questions,
Machado.
please?
I just had a real simple question. I was admiring your T-shirts. Are those for sale?
Oh, not for sale for you. No, we'll get them to you. We'll have to reorder them. We, on our first year, we actually made it for the descendants, and it was part of the package. And we sold out of them. So we will go ahead and make more for January. Now, do most of you have? Yeah, I have. Okay. So let me know who needs a shirt, and we'll just give it to you. Then, thank you. Oh, okay.
I'd like to ask the mayor's permission.
You turn on your mic. Thank you.
Give me permission, I'll do it.
Yes. I just want to, I'm compelled to say a little more about the experience of the Buffalo Soldiers in our community, how it affected a lot of us. And I was one of those young lads that was growing up in the 50s and 60s here, and I was able to enjoy the love of your grandfather, of his comrades. They used to have a post there where I lived on the street, on Perkins Street, that later became, and now is, I guess, a place where they rent out for parties and whatnot. What used to be also Knights of Columbus Hall, most recent. But back then it was a post. I don't know if it was the American Legion post for them. But since we hung out there, we got to kind of run amidst them, and they always invited us, myself and my friends, like the Rosetas and Fontes and Lopez's from the area, and they would do the barbecues when they had their, and I mean, they made the best chicken barbecue that I ever tasted in my life. But it wasn't so much what they shared with us as far as giving us goodies and snacks and whatnot, like soda pops back then, which what I want to say is what we received more was the love. And also when our parents would tell us, respect Mr. Jackson, he's a veteran, always show, whatever he needs, you give him a helping hand, even as a young lads, And it was the same with the other folks that belonged to the post. But what I want to say is that helped back in the 60s when everything was going amok in the rest of the nation. I don't think I had an idea when I went to military that there was discrimination really against colored folks, because I saw them with great respect and love. And that helped us to be able to, like, when we did go into the military, make good friends with everyone. Right away they could see that I was sincere, and that's the way we were raised here in Nogales. And it was due to the fact that they had a lot of love to give. And I'm so glad that I was able to enjoy that benefit of their love and their just fellowship with the youth of our city, which I was, privileged to be one of those young boys that was amongst them. And I want to thank you. And we've always, your father carried on with that respect and tradition. And so this is your home. I think wherever you are is your secondary home. But where the love is, that's where home is. And that love still goes out to all of you because of the love that your grandparents and their friends imparted in us. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Doyle. Great. I think those are great words for you, Mr. Jackson, on, just the memory of your family. Ricky, you're from here. We grew up together, and there's a big legacy in town for, the Buffalo Soldiers. And like you said, we wish we would have known back then what we know now. And I think we would have explored it more than right now that, we don't have the people that could tell us those stories. But, I think the city is in full support of you guys, and I thank council for all the help that we've been able to give you. Anybody else have any comments? No, thank you. That's it. We move to discussion items number 5. Number 5, discussion items. A, discussion and possible action, mayor and council credit card report for June 2023. Mr. Bermudez.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, attached is the monthly report for basically your credit card use. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Mayor, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Mr. Bermudez, I have a quick question. I know that this was brought upon some originally concerns over the spending of the mayor by council members. How long is this going to continue? This report, is it going to be just a practice from now on to have a report in the discussion item?
My understanding is it is both mayor and councils. It just so happens that the mayor's credit card is the one that has been used as of late. So any expenses you have, any travel expenses that you use a credit card, actually your expenses individually from every council member is going to be brought up monthly.
Okay. My next question is, I would like to also include, if I don't know the legal part of it, but also like to include the rest of the credit card expenses. That information is provided along with this information.
Are you talking about every other department
Yeah.
has a credit card?
Yeah. I don't see the why not.
Okay.
So in the next reports, I'd like to see the rest of the expenses. I don't see the difference. They're public funds. And I don't really see the difference other than kind of sitting here every month and looking at the expenses of the mayor. And I know that there's a manager that maybe your role also is to oversee the expenses of the other credit cards, but nonetheless are public funds. And so we should include that too for the public to see.
If that's the council's ultimate desire, then that item has to be put on the agenda, and then we can act on it pursuant to motion or policy or whatever.
Okay, so at the end of the meeting, one of my requests will be that, to put on the future agenda item.
Okay.
Thank you.
With this said, yes, sir.
Just a small question. When not only the mayor's credit card, but any employee that uses a credit card for meals or anything like that, do they on the tip? Can they use the money from the credit card to pay the tip? Is that okay?
As long as it's still under the amount for that meal. So
Oh,
if you're
okay.
allowed 15, 20, 30, if it's still under that amount, yes.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
No?
No, I respectfully disagree. Gratuities are not properly, the payment of gratuities from public funds is not a proper expenditure. Even if it's under the amount.
Councilman Bonilla?
No, well, it just caught my eye. It's not a whole lot of money. It's just like $22, but I just needed that clarification. If we can pay the gratuity off the credit card. I mean, is it a big issue? No, it's like $22 is not a big deal, but for future references that we have it, that we know that we cannot use the city funds to pay a gratuity. Am I correct?
It's the first thing I heard about it, so don't worry, we'll take care of it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll clarify. I don't think it's a problem at this point because it wasn't clarified before. But now that it is, it's been brought up specifically, then it's not a proper use.
And
Ms. Montiel?
okay, and the reason I bring it up, Mr. Machado, is if you could look into it, because it seems like every month we're eyeing on what the mayor is spending, but yet public funds are public funds regardless. And this is the first time also I hear about it. So what you're saying is you're going to look into it if the tip could be added and the public funds pay for it?
No.
What, I'm a little confused.
No, I'm saying that the use of public funds for the payment specifically of a gratuity
The gratuity.
is not proper. That's what I'm saying.
Didn't know that. Okay.
Okay.
But you'll give a legal opinion, or that's your legal opinion?
No,
That
that's
it's
not your opinion. I mean, if you think about the reasoning behind it, right? The expenditure of public funds requires a purpose, okay? An official purpose, it being, does it further the city or the interest of the city of Nogales in this case, okay? A business lunch or whatever, the payment of the meals or policy, the per diem, all that has been passed and approved by the council. That's a proper legal expense for the use of the public funds. Now, a gratuity doesn't in any manner further the interest of the city of Nogales. And that's the key.
Mr. Gradias, Councilman.
I move to approve the expenses as presented to us for June 2023.
Well, I was going to ask, Mayor, I was just interested in and not only approving the expenses, but I'm thinking now, are we only looking at expenses on food items or any expense that comes on the credit cards?
Any expense,
Well,
any charges?
the policy that the council passed is the review of the expenditures of credit cards that have been issued to the council. It's just limited to the council.
Oh, I thought we were covering all employees.
No, it's limited to the council. Now, all the other types of expenditures are subject to review when we have our annual audits by the Auditor General and so on. But in particular, that policy that was passed only deals with the credit cards that have been issued to the council, not just the mayor, to the council.
Yeah, but I think the mayor's the only one that has a card.
Well, but that's a choice that each one of you voluntarily makes, whether or
Okay.
not to have a
Okay,
card.
so we
But
can-
if you did, for example, if you had a card issued to you, which you have a right to do so, then your expenses would be subject to review also.
See, this goes a little deeper than that, because when you single out just one person, it makes it look like maybe there was some wrongdoing, but there isn't. So we need to, if we're going to check, we need to check all the employees, and that's.
I mean, that's
But that's something that we can put on the agenda.
that's a
And also because we'd like to know how the taxpayers' money is being spent by the other folks that have credit cards. So,
No,
okay.
I mean,
I
that's-
just wanted to clear that up because, again, I always see it's the mayor's, checking the mayor, like, how about the rest?
You're absolutely right, and whether you decide to go any further, that's wholly within discretion of the council. But I just want to point out that the policy that was passed does not single out the mayor. It applies to the whole council. Okay.
Right. Okay. Well, I've had people ask me actually that because of this, is the mayor doing something wrong?
No,
And that's their perception.
I mean,
And so okay, fine. We're gonna have to address that. Thank you.
yeah.
Well, Joseph, when it comes, I got a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Discussion, presentation, and possible action, Nogales Music Fest. Councilwoman Montiel.
Yes, I have placed this on the agenda so that Liz Weatherby, if you can come up, Liz. Liz is also the director of the Hilltop Gallery. President, yeah, and just about everything there, right, Liz? You also collaborate with the city, and you've been for over 40 years. But she would like to give.
No, but the Hilltop, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just like really getting into the conversation y'all were having earlier, so I lost my train of thought. As Ms. Montiel said, I'm Elizabeth Weatherby. I'm the president of the Hilltop Gallery here in Nogales. I've been president for 3 years now. I used to work for the Hilltop as an administrator, and thanks to Janice Johnson, who's retired, I have a greater appreciation of the arts, not just in our town, but just in general. The idea was presented to me. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Mayor and council members and the community for giving us this opportunity to speak about this and to present this. This presentation is to have an art music fest here in Nogales, to hopefully celebrate it every year here in Nogales. I don't know if any of you remember the Nogi Fest way back in the 80s, but we want to kind of bring that more into the community, because that was kind of like out of the community, involving the community. And we're hoping to have this on October 21st this year, in celebration of music and arts and bringing the community together. Is there a magic button I push? Oh, look at that. That's 2023. It's designed to be a free event, no charge to the community, for the arts, music, food, and fun, of course, as it states. And the time and the date and the location, we're hoping to have it here at the City Hall in Cordova Park, to be accessible to the entire city, you know, just come on in kind of thing. And the mission, the objective of the Nogales Fest, or the Nogi Fest, is to unite the community by fostering social connections and sharing a positive and enriching experience. Additionally, it will provide an opportunity for businesses to form partnerships and contribute to the contribute to the preservation of the cultural heritage and history of the city of Nogales. Nogales, for me, Nogales has always been my home. I went away to college in New Mexico, but Nogales has held my heart. It raised me. It's family. And I want to make sure that feeling never goes away from this town. And I want to enhance it. I want to be able to have everybody help enhance that, and especially the city of Nogales. Bringing the community together with arts and music. And that's the big idea, is bringing the community together. The idea of the festival is to feature local musicians, vendors, and artists to celebrate our wonderful city and community members, and to recognize the arts and local talents. Our hope is to motivate the community by making this an annual event celebrating the beauty and all the amenities in Nogales. By providing a venue to local artists and musicians, from high school kids to seasoned professionals, we hope to encourage community participation. I've already been speaking with a lot of the local bands, the local talent, and these are the individuals that I've asked, the bands that I've asked, if they'd be interested in participating in this event, should it go forward. And my daughter, Veronica Weatherby, was asked to be, she was the MC for the 4th of July. We also asked her to be the master of ceremonies for the Nogi Fest, and she agreed. And the sound and lighting, we reached out to Rafa Escobar, and I believe you already have a quote from him. If we go back up here, we'll talk a little bit about the stage and the seating and the lighting. Again, we're focused on the Cordova Park right out in front of City Hall. So it's really central to the community and easily accessible by the community. We've asked numerous local vendors and artists if they would like to participate in the event, and we have a pretty large list going. If you notice the map, it kind of details where everything will go, like the vendors, the food court, the beer barn, the stage, the seating. So it gives you an idea of what it will look like from overhead, where we kind of hope to have the event. The festival funding will be in kind. We're looking to raise money for this event. We are asking the city for nothing more than the location, security, toilets, personnel, and chairs. The lighting and the sound will be either by contributions, donations, sponsorships, as well as the marketing will be through donations, sponsorships, and the bands are donating their time, which is extremely essential and valuable. It's invaluable, actually. So there's no out-of-pocket expenses that I'm asking from the City of Nogales, and the Hilltop Gallery, in collaboration with the City of Nogales, is, as we do everything, we're asking for volunteers, and we're asking for time, and we're asking for space. Sponsors. We've already got numerous sponsors that are lined up. As soon as, or if we get the okay, then we'll present you with more detailed information. But right now we're asking for the City of Nogales to collaborate with the Hilltop Gallery in bringing this to the community. We have had numerous musical performances at the Hilltop Gallery. As you see, that's a picture of Bobby Linero. He's performed there with several bands, Prova and Mezcal, and he's a wonderful musician. He's a great friend, and he's really supportive of nonprofit organizations. In the corner, you'll see Dorian Moore. His family is from David's Western Wear. He's an amazing, young, talented, aspiring musician, as well as he's one of the acts that we hope to have for the Nogi Fest. The children's art programming, which we've collaborated with the City of Nogales for over 40 years, it's on its 6th week. This is the last week, Thursday. I've sent out a few invitations. The children are amazing. The support from their family, the support from the city, it's just been an incredible experience, and we want to continue that kind of collaboration, that kind of support with a Nogi Fest. And finally, Nogi Fest 2023 is in addition to the continuing dedication, and I guess I jumped the gun there earlier, to our community by providing a venue that fosters growth for local musicians, artists, and vendors. Looking forward, we hope that providing this resource promotes community involvement on a continuing basis, and that the Nogi Fest becomes an annual event that encourages community participation, as well as not only by its members, but also anyone who enjoys a pleasant and exciting event geared towards community, music, and the arts. The proceeds of the Nogi Fest 2023 will benefit the following nonprofits. The Hilltop Gallery has asked the Santa Cruz Humane Society if they will partner in a booth and share the proceeds of that booth. And again, if your answer is yes, then we'll be able to tell them it's a go. And last but not least, we're overjoyed and looking forward to working with you on this festival. Thank you, City of Nogales Mayor and City Council, for this opportunity to be involved in the Nogi Fest and for the dedication and collaboration in events such as this. And thank you for your overwhelming support for the Hilltop Gallery in bringing the summer arts program to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, that was it.
Mr. Bonilla?
Yes, since the city is partnering up for this event, right? We're gonna help them out, so they don't have to provide any their separate insurance or none of that stuff that we ask when they do it at Fletcher or anything like that. Who's gonna be liable for?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Who's gonna be liable for? Are they gonna need to provide insurance for this event?
It all depends what the city's role is in this event. If it's a city event and they're with us, with the city, then we approach then we can address the assurance issues. But if it's a Hilltop Gallery event and we're just providing support, it all depends what type of support we're providing. So I can't answer it in a vacuum, you know.
Okay.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I would like to think it would be a city event.
Pardon me?
I would like to consider it a city event because it's about the city of Nogales. It's about the community of the Nogales. The Hilltop Gallery would just like to really participate and contribute as much as possible.
Well, that's a different discussion. And that's something probably we could take up in connection with item D. And then we can decide, I mean, we can take that discussion as to what items or what events we can sponsor and so on and so forth. That would be my suggestion. Let's discuss item D and then we can address all the other stuff that you're requesting.
Go ahead, Councilman Doyle. Councilwoman Esther.
I support 100% this kind of events. Thank you for being part of the community. I think it's not working. Okay. I think we do need to support these kind of events. It's so important to involve the community. And we're part of the community, so we're supposed to really help this event. It's supposed to be a city event. Well, that's my understanding.
Councilman Doyle.
I guess I'm trying to figure out, I know that the support that's going to be needed is in kind.
In kind.
Now, is your organization asking for any funding from the city for that event?
None at all.
And like you said, you're almost good to go. Does that mean that you've already secured the funding to set it up?
We have reached out to numerous funders, donors, sponsors who have shown and expressed interest. And if we say the city of Nogales says yes, then they are more than likely to say yes as well.
Okay. Okay. So but you're not relying on the city for funding?
None at all.
Oh, okay. I guess that's my main question.
It's all in kind.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Boneas.
I was seeing that you could have beer sales, right?
Yes.
So I guess the money that's made off from that, is that going to be split up between the Hilltop and the Humane Society, or just for the Hilltop?
It would be split up between the two nonprofits.
Okay.
And manned by the two nonprofits.
Another question, I guess. There's going to be beer sales? Is that what you asked? Yeah. Who's going to run that?
The Hilltop Gallery and the Santa Cruz Humane Society, and we are going to be applying for a liquor license.
Okay. But that's not like,
Or
if you shouldn't get that when the fest would continue, in other words. Say you
Oh,
didn't,
if we didn't have a beer barn, yeah, the fest would continue. And
because apparently you're going to have other things also there, like food vendors and stuff, or?
food vendors, local arts and crafts, like say jewelry or painting or whatever the artists create, as well as yeah, food. I keep thinking food. I'm starving.
Okay.
But yeah, I believe the festival will be fine without the alcoholic beverages.
Okay, so it'd still be an event that'll take place regardless of the other permitting of maybe a liquor license or whatever.
Correct.
It's not going to hold back the event. In other words.
No, the event is the event is all about the community, and it's all about the performing arts and the visual arts.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
the Hilltop Gallery is going to be applying soon, as soon as next week, for a special event license through the city of Nogales, which eventually ends up at the liquor board at the state level.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councilwoman. Montiel.
Thank you, Liz. First of all, before I ask you to tell us a little bit about the role your dad played in this building. Yeah. So I also want to let you know that I appreciate the fact that you've taken this responsibility on. I have been a big supporter of the Hilltop and La Línea and all these wonderful organizations, and especially some of these kids that are starting to perform. And there's been this need about featuring these local bands in the community. There's a lot of them, and many of them have been asking, to be featured. I appreciate the fact that they're not charging, and I saw that you have Ivan there. I know that he's a big star, Ivan Orellano. They're all big stars, but I know he's even competed in Mexico.
I believe he was the winner of The Voice in Mexico.
Yeah, yeah, and I think he performed in one of your parties, didn't he, Mr. Bojorquez?
Yes.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and I know the Springs of Iris performed at the 4th of July, and I know Dorian Moore is up and coming, and so I know that you're probably going to add two more, right? Two more that he talked about, Cicada and the Estrada brothers. So there's plenty of talent out there that's willing to do it free, and I really appreciate it. Also on the sponsors, I know I was there at the Hilltop today, and you worked very hard to get sponsors. One of them is the Cedric Foundation, and I just got off the phone with Tony, and he's willing to fund it.
Fantastic.
So there's, you have to work hard, and you've been doing that, getting sponsors to sponsor these types of events. And I really appreciate that. Now you could tell us a little bit about your father.
My father worked for the city of Nogales for many years in the planning and zoning department, and he designed this building. He designed the original park that is no longer. He designed the original fountain and layout that the front of the city of Nogales had when he worked for the city of Nogales in the planning and zoning department. And every time I come into this building, it's hard for me because I remember as a kid, I'd get out of school, whether it was A.J. Mitchell or Wade Carpenter, and I'd come running down here and I'd run into his office just to say hi. So, yeah, Ron Weatherby was my dad.
Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Yes. How about the sound system? You will be providing the sound system, so the bands, all they have to do is bring their guitars, and you're providing the drum set also?
The bands, the way generally, when you have big events like this, and we've had several interesting events at the Hilltop Gallery, like for our anniversary, which was in September, they were either played acoustic or it was a band and kind of staggered like this. If one band is willing to allow their drum set to be used, then it's basically just plugging in the guitars and the rest of the band's just easy on, easy off kind of thing. With the MC in between, there might be some music in the background, so to speak, while the one band goes off. But our idea is if we have like a single act and then a band and then a single act and a band. The single act, while they're performing, the band behind them will be able to get it all together before they end. So there's no real gap in between. The lighting and sound, Rafa Escobar, I've seen videos of his work. He does really good work. And the way we already met and discussed how it would go about in this area, it's a pretty easy setup. It looks like it's a pretty easy setup.
Well, I've seen Mr. Escobar's sound and lighting system, and he does a pretty good job. The only problem that we always encounter is the drum set. Nobody wants to be carrying drum sets from one place to another and setting it up and then taking it out and have another band come in and set it up again.
Yeah,
So
that's the hardest part about
that's
any
the hard part.
acts. But I was waiting to talk to Chris Martin from the Bad Catholics, because they're really easygoing when it comes to stuff like that. And if they would like to provide their drum set to allow the rest of the bands to use, that would be fantastic. Otherwise, Vene Sanchez, whatever band she plays with, Damas and Calaveras is just one of the bands that she plays with, or sings with, rather. Why do I feel like there's a band missing? Oh, Springs of Iris. I know they have a drum set as well. So it would be just a matter of reaching out, seeing which one would provide or be willing to provide the use of their drum set, because I know a lot of drummers are very temperamental, like, don't touch my drums. But like I said, the Bad Catholics, they're pretty easygoing.
Thank you. Councilman Bonilla.
Oh, if I make, I do this for a living. What you're referring to is called the back line. So what you do from the beginning is called the back line. So what you do in the beginning, you will have one drum set, like you said. You will have one bass, one guitar amp. You will have all the cabling done for the keyboards and stuff like that. So that way you're not removing because if you start doing that in this event,
Oh, yeah. There's not enough space.
you don't have enough people to do a changeover. You need 20 people to take away all the equipment, and then the other half comes in and sets it up. So you would just need to get a neutral drummer that's not going to play for that event and donate his drum set, and have someone else donate their guitar amp and bass amp guitar. That way, no one feels, like you said, they're temperamental with their equipment and they want to leave early, or I would just as a suggestion, try to get the back line.
That's a very good suggestion.
Get the back line secured for this event. That way, you don't move anything. You start off the event, and I can point you to a direction where you can get all that.
That would be fantastic. Because the Hilltop Gallery does have a PA system. We've been borrowing speakers when we used to have the open mic. But we do have the PA, we do have some equipment, and we're actually borrowing those speakers back for Thursday for the... Thanks for pointing that out. But knowing a lot of musicians and having musicians in my family, it's not a hard thing to come by. However, it helps to have a lot of help. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Councilman Gradias.
Yeah, I'm really in favor of this, as well as I think is the consensus of the rest of the council. It's just a matter of, do we have to wait till we go through item D, or can we move on it? Since all they're asking is in kind, what would be the recommendation from legal?
That's why I wanted that other portion discussed first, because it all depends where it's placed in the categories of our policy and how much in-kind services are being requested. But it's doable. I mean, I'm not trying to say that it's not or anything, but one of the necessary information that we would require is exactly what type of services that would be required by you, in-kind services by the city, so that a value can be placed on that in-kind service, and then depending on that value, it's something that the city manager can authorize, or it's something that the city council has to authorize. So that's what I meant by needing additional information.
Okay, so I think what I have listed here is about the extent of what the in-kind is necessary for this event.
Okay, I mean, unless it's really, we're under the gun time-wise, there are policy, in our policy that there's an application with itemization of these things, so that type of decision can be made.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, so we wouldn't have to do it.
So time-wise, we're talking October. So we have a few months.
I would say we have time to
Yeah.
go through the process.
And I didn't print out any hard copies of this presentation. What I will do is I emailed it to Judy. I don't know if she got it. But if you need hard copies, we're willing to print out hard copies.
Judy, would you please email it to our council? Please. Go ahead, Mr. Doyle.
Yes, about 6 years ago, I guess I was involved with something similar, but not as well planned as this event. And it was done right here in front of actually the same area you want to use. And what it was, we brought in 6 groups of music, a couple of from Tucson, and we didn't put a lot of planning into it. We just they wanted to get together and play. It was more like jam, I guess, and we didn't really bring it out to the people. You know, we just did a couple of weeks before putting some posters up and whatnot. And at that time, Mr. Kissinger helped me out, and I forget who the city manager was, but we just figured in kind here locally wasn't going to be that much. So yeah, I mean, you had security. I remember we had a couple of porta potties or something like that, and
Those are very important.
oh yeah, no, definitely. And I'm glad we did, because we had over 700 people come, and it was from 3 to 9, and most of the people, at least about over half, stayed till it was over. And everybody was just
Want to go beyond.
and yeah, because they were kind of sitting and laying with their kids playing around, you know, on the grass, and most of them sitting on the grass and whatnot. So it was a good crowd, but we weren't overloaded, and I don't think it was that expensive for the city. I didn't get any complaints from the city saying, well, you know. It was, everything went in very nice, smooth fashion as far as the event itself. So there's not that much expense into it, really, as far as the city provides on the in-kind. But the thing was that really delighted us was all the people that came and just enjoyed the music. And I remember the bands didn't have any trouble moving in and out almost on an hourly basis, putting, you know, everybody had an opportunity to play, and they enjoyed it, and some even stayed a little longer, you know, of the bands that were playing. And so it was just a good.
There is the heart of this whole idea.
Mm-hmm.
It's the community. They want to be out. They want to be socializing. They want to have their kids playing. The bands want to play.
Yeah, and when we didn't even have any vendors, I mean, we would have planned it. We probably would have provided some vendors with food and some drinks or whatever, you know. But no, it worked out, and so I see no problem with something like this, especially here, because it's confined. You know, it's not. It's like when we give in-kind that you're out in the street doing parades or traffic control, barricades, different porta potties, and a lot of people from the city setting up and clean up and everything else that comes into the in-kind. Well, that's a greater expense, but when it's confined to a certain area, it's really not that much. So I think you guys are on the right track. City Hall's a beautiful place to hold events. It's amazing how people, and I think a lot of the people are just driving by and they saw the crowd and they stopped and it just grew, you know. So
I think that's
we're centrally located.
They look and they say, "Oh, what's going on there?"
Yeah, and they hear the music, and so yeah. Anyway, I congratulate you for the effort you've put into this. And I hope that it's a great success and that it continues, because people love it. here in the community.
Okay.
Thank you,
That's all I have to say.
Mr. Bonillas.
Thank you, John.
Last-
Mr. Bermudez, can you make sure that when they submit their liquor license, because the park is not secured, we're going to have to figure out a way to put barricades around, because I know that the Department of Liquor will want for it to be enclosed or have an area enclosed for the beer sales. So just make sure that when you apply for your liquor license, since we have no barricades around this Cordova Park, we're going to have some barricades around there too. So it's a little detail, but it can become an issue if we don't take care of that.
It may be a little detailed, but it's a perfect example of why we need an itemization of what is requested. Because if the city is expected to actually put up the barricades and so on, that will probably take it up from one category, in-kind services, to another category. But without having the itemization, you don't know. It's not that, obviously, the council is going to be very supportive, but it's, the process has to be followed according to the policy.
Of course.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Anybody make a motion?
I just want to make a small recommendation. I think since they're talking, instead of having a large area barricaded, there should be a designated area, smaller area, and that way it doesn't entail, and it can be more controlled.
That could be discussed.
But if you notice, it says beer garden in the one circle.
Oh, there you go.
Here. So it would be in a contained area.
Go ahead,
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Bermudez.
So from talking to Ms. Weatherby, had a couple of conversations with her as far as to her plans. And my estimate is that in-kind, as far as to labor, wouldn't exceed at this point the $1,000 threshold. And as far as to porta potties and barricades and everything else that's inclusive, the city already owns that, so there is no charge accumulated for those items. And at the end of the day, I think this is a great idea, and I think it'll bring a positive economic impact on the city of Nogales as we move forward year by year and get bigger. I see this at the likes of like the Bisbee events, that there's people from all over the state that attend those, all over the country actually, attend those events. So I think this is a great idea.
And it would bring Nogalenses back home.
Thank you.
Oh, no.
So make a motion to go ahead and authorize this function with the in-kind. No?
Second.
My suggestion would be that
We're gonna
nothing
take-
is done in terms of action until we itemize what type of support you're requesting.
Just itemize it.
You know, as I just indicated to Mr. Bermudez, when you start using city equipment and all that stuff, other than the services, under the policy, that's not considered in-kind. So that's why it's important. Believe me, I'm not trying to complicate this, but you have a policy that you passed that requires a certain process. And if we don't follow the process, then we don't know what we're voting on. We don't know what you're requesting. And all I'm saying is we need to do it pursuant to the policy. It's no biggie. Just itemize it, then we'll figure out if the city manager can do it without further council action, or the council has to bless it. It's going to happen either way, but we just have to find the right process.
So if I may, one of the things that Liz asked me is about the funding, and I told her to be specific because I looked at the policy, which was one of the memos I sent you yesterday, and I know it asks for specifics, and she did put there, but are you saying that you want amounts, monetary amounts, like?
The response to Councilman Bonill's question was that no funding was being asked.
There isn't.
There isn't any funding.
There isn't, no funding.
Monetarily.
The monetary amount equivalent,
For in-kind.
Just in kind.
Okay.
Those numbers, I believe that the city would have to provide.
Drive is not a permissible in-kind by Mr. Bermudez. See, if it was just in-kind services, certain types of in-kind services that are allowed by the policy, and it's under a certain amount, then the city manager can okay it, and we just move forward.
Which he just said it was $1,000.
Okay, but what she requested was fencing and the use of porta potties, equipment and stuff like that. That's not considered in-kind.
But it's owned by the city.
I know, but the policy does not define it in that manner.
And we've been doing that with all the other fiestas. I'm not trying to, circumvent the legal part of this. You're the attorney, but it seems like when we want to do something, things are changed all the time as we
they're
go.
not changed. The problem has been, in my
Yeah.
experience, is that things are not changed, is that policies are not followed.
Well, that's not good.
And if policies are not followed, then we, every time something comes up, it's done differently.
Okay.
But if the policy was followed, it would be done the same all the time. And it's not a roadblock. It's not a hurdle. It just has to be done according to the process.
Okay. Well, I thought that we were following the process, so I guess you want more details. So she can collaborate with you and go back and get money in Mr. Bermudez. Well, I say you because we were following the lead of Mr. Bermudez, so I guess it has to be more
If
detailed.
What you're requesting comes under the amount, under a certain limit, then that would be, then Mr. Bermudez has the authority to move forward without ever coming back. But if there's other items that are requested that he doesn't have the authority to okay, then we come back to the council and they okay it. But that's just part of the process.
I remember for Councilwoman's Melinda's event, I remember that we were specific. When we said you needed in-kind from the city, it was like $3,000, but those $3,000 were for the police officers. And I think we voted separately so that the city could donate a trash dumpster and the porta potties, right, Council? Right? Am I correct? That's the way we did but they were separate. So yes, Mr. Machado, I do remember that we did do it that way. It was not, the porta potties and the trash bins were not in kind, and because we separated those for her event. So yeah, you are correct, but it's not a big deal. I mean, we'll just go about it differently, that's all.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Council, I'll get together with Mr. Machado because my understanding is that this is city equipment that doesn't have a price because we're not into the renting of porta potties or chairs or tables. So I wouldn't know where to start as far as to putting a price on that. My understanding of in-kind, and I'll get together with Mr. Machado, is that the in-kind basically is labor to set up everything all the equipment that belongs already to the city. So when we talk about in-kind, my understanding is that's labor to set up, bring down, clean up, whatever amount of money it takes for labor to do this, because the city already owns whatever equipment, whether it be dumpsters, whether it be porta potties, whether it be fencing, everything there is. But I'll get a clearer picture from Mr. Machado.
And hopefully I can clarify when we talk about item D.
Go ahead, Councilman Doyle.
Again, it seems like the area that's more in question for Mr. Machado is the beer garden and
The what?
beer garden and the barrier that's supposed to be around it.
Well, it's what is defined as in-kind services. In-kind services are the use of personnel and services that we have, like providing police protection, fire, emergency ambulances, and so on. Those types of things, okay? But it does not include equipment, porta potties, the barricades.
I'm hearing two things now, Mr. Machado. Our city manager just mentioned one thing and you're mentioning another, and that's that as far as the city equipment, which is porta potties and maybe barricades, they haven't put a value on it, and that's provided because the city owns it already, so they're not paying extra money, like if, unless you do that for all in-kind services, that you take into account the value of the in-kind of what you're providing.
That's not included in kind. That's my whole point. The equipment and stuff that we have in the city is not included as in kind. Now, if you want to allow the use of the barricades, the equipment, whatever the city owns, tents, all that stuff, then it can be done. But the only one that can do that is the council can authorize that. So if he wants in-kind services, that's fine. We give him in-kind services. But if it includes the use of equipment, city other property, barricades, so on, it's only the council that can authorize the use of those under the different categories.
Okay, so just to clear it up, right now, not going there, and what kind of in-kind service are we talking that doesn't need the council approval? I mean, this needs to be approved by the council to start off with, but what are we talking about? I mean, what's the limit? What's the range of that in-kind service that the council, that the city manager can approve without the council's approval?
The city manager can approve up to $1,000 in-kind services. Okay, if again added police, fire, whatever else we have in terms of.
Well, that's the in-kind. Aside from that, we don't need much in-kind.
Well, we may not need that much in kind. What is requested might be other things and not just in kind. But the other things that are requested have to be approved by the council. That's what we have to, that's the policy we have.
So we need to separate the needs or the in-kind services that's going to be provided. Is that what you're saying?
All I'm saying is, you don't know where you have to get the authority until you know what is being requested.
Okay. So in other words, I'm just to get a clear picture here. Once you start adding porta potties, barriers, or whatever it is, that's a different cost of the in-kind.
But it's not included in the in-kind. See, in other words, we can say, okay, you need 5 police officers for 10 hours, just to say, okay? And we need an ambulance and we need so-and-so. Those are easy to calculate. We'll figure out, okay, the total for in-kind comes out at 800, okay? That's fine. That can be okayed. But in addition to that, let's say I'm requesting the use of barricades. I'm requesting the city place some barriers or the fencing for the liquor area or whatever else, right? I'm requesting the use of a city generator, city tents, city tables, city chairs, any other equipment, anything hard, okay? Then that has to come from you. And it's not included in the value. You don't value it. You just say, you need 10 chairs, you need this, and you approve it.
Okay.
Mayor, so, go ahead.
No, I don't want to go on, but I'm glad that we're following the policy because I've been here for 2 years and a half and we've never had conversations about it. I'm looking very carefully at like the in-kind with all the other special expenses and some of the things that you've brought up, like the bathrooms and all that stuff. That wasn't disaggregated, if you will. It wasn't like what you're talking about. So it's good that we're going to be following the policy that you've sent us today.
Again, I don't want to complicate it more, but just as an example, we're doing this unless the council designates it a certain category. If it's designated within a certain category, then there are no limits as far as in-kind or equipment and so, but that has to come from the council. you know. And again, they don't have that information. Mr. Bermudez doesn't have the information to see where it properly belongs. If your request can be approved by Mr. Bermudez, it doesn't have to go to council. But if your request is something that he can't approve, then it has to go to council. And the council is going to want to know how many tables you need, how many chairs you need, how many barricades, in order to determine whether they're going to do it, yes or
Can you
no.
tell me what event we've had that we've done in kind, that we've counted chairs and tables and tents?
It's not in kind. Put it in
That's why
terms of
everybody's
equipment.
thought, that's in kind. That's what we've all considered in kind. My 6 years of council.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, maybe I can help a little bit here. And I'm trying to help Ms. Weatherby here. I believe that the request from Ms. Weatherby is for this event to be a Class A event.
Pardon, I didn't hear that? A class?
She doesn't know what a class A is.
I mean, from members of the council, is that where you're interpreting?
We know.
I'm just trying to minimize the
Exactly.
conversation here
To make it
because.
a Class A,
yes.
like Mr. Machado says, so that. we
Right,
can
so
do
is it
both
easier,
in kind.
Mr. Machado, if we give the option to the council to designate this event, Nogi Fest, as a Class A?
Perfect.
Well, that will be the ultimate decision, whether or not you want it
Yeah.
Class A. But I don't think that decision can be properly made unless you have the information regarding the level of support you're going to give. You can say, yes, it's a Class A event, but I'm sure you're not going to say, give them open checkbook, give them as what you need. In order for you to make that determination and approve the use of equipment and so on, you've got to have the information before you can exercise that discretion, or you're going to be criticized.
Councilwoman Melendez?
Well, I think that we know what we want, and we want to help the community. We want to help them. So a class event, a Class A event would be more properly for this kind of event. I don't think they're going to go all the way. I mean, she's telling us what she needs. It's not a big deal. So if we know that that's what it is, a Class A event would be just okay. That's my opinion. I don't know.
Councilman Gradias?
Okay, I know we're in favor of this, and the only issue is that we need to go to item D to make sure we follow the policies and procedures, because we're here because we tabled the Fiestas Patrias event because of the same thing at our last meeting. So we continue to go round and round without having specific guidance. So once we get the guidance, we can apply to any event. We got to classify our events. I think that's what we're moving forward to, so that we can follow the policies to make these educated decisions when we're up here. If we keep going back to the old way of doing things, we're going to be in the same boat.
I agree. So, Mr. Machado, can we just jump to, item D and leave this for?
Mayor, it says here on this item, discussion, presentation, and possible action. Possible action is that we could decide right now what class we're going to put it in.
I don't think you can, because it's not agendized for that purpose.
Well, it's on the agenda for discussion, presentation, and possible action.
But not the specific action that you're requesting to place on the Class A.
Okay, so that's your opinion then.
That's my opinion. And
Okay.
again,
That's
all I
okay.
can advise you guys, I can't tell you what to do. And
And what's the legal responsibility we have if we don't follow that opinion? I mean, on us.
you're welcome.
What,
Okay.
in other words, in legal terms, what kind of problems?
Let me put it this way. The council has certain obligations, right?
Right.
The community.
Yeah.
And your positions and so on. Okay? Now, if we could then designate this a Class A, and once it's a Class A, then the council can determine the level of support that you want. You can give her $1 million if you want.
No.
Well, I'm just.
We're not, there's no money involved
Or
here.
you can say, you can use this equipment, you can't, and so on, okay? But what I'm saying is, unless you know what's being requested and what's being authorized, I think you would be honestly derelict in your duties and responsibility to authorize somebody a blank check. You just can't say, okay, we're going to support this event. We all like it, we all want it, but we're just going to give you the support you need.
See, Mr. Machado, you're going to extremes. What we're discussing,
giving you-
what we're discussing here is that it might go over $500 more
Not everything.
of the 1,000.
I just approved this to be a Class A event. Okay, what have you approved? What
Well, in-kind service, that's all, because there's no money involved.
kind of in-kind services and to what level?
Right.
You've also approved other things that are allowed in Class A, funding, for example, or the use of equipment. What equipment have you, what have you authorized, in other words?
In other words, what equipment will they use? I mean, it's already a known factor what's going to be involved.
I mean, with all due respect, known to whom? You know,
It's-
what,
To the event, in comparison to all the events that we've supported. You know, in other words, this is an enclosed, it's not like going to be scattered uptown where you're going to need, you know, or somewhere else where you need more, say, police involved, more expensive in-kind. This is a small area confined that right now, the big thing would be the chairs, maybe a couple of porta potties, the security, and if they need to put some kind of barricade around which the garden, which is just to keep order of that any drinking will be done in that area, not anywhere else.
Mr. Mayor,
That's about the extent of it.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Mr. Bermudez.
And therefore, not to prolong this conversation any further, would it help if any council member brings this back in the August 3rd meeting?
Yeah.
And brings it back as a request for a Class A?
Motion table. Make a motion table.
You know, it's just, you know, like I said, I never heard that we need to go to such details. How many chairs, how many tables, how many tents, but, you know, let's go through D and everything, and Ms. Weatherby will be back, and, you know, I think everybody's positive on this, and, you know, just legally, we just want to make sure we get it right.
Of course.
Everybody agree?
Yes.
Table? All right, so,
I would just like to remind the council that it would be a city event that we're just collaborating on. That was the main idea.
Well, see, that's the distinction that we'll talk about.
yeah.
Don't worry about
It's
that.
because she doesn't understand the classes.
Yes,
either,
that's
so
what
it's hard for her to.
We'll talk
Yeah, we'll
about
just
it.
move on. We'll just-
It'll be a city event, but at what level we're going to decide.
Yeah. You can always close off the chairs. Bring your own chair.
I appreciate it, Ms. Weatherby. Thank you. So I move to, so we table this action B, and once we get all details, we'll come back. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Did I skip Palo Duro or go to, no, let's work on Palo Duro. Let's see.
Whatever you'd like.
Yeah, let's see. Discussion looking at bringing back Palo Duro Golf Course, something that I put on the agenda. And, you know, I've been getting a lot of requests on seeing what can be done at the Palo Duro, and not just the golf course. Not just the golf course, but, you know, the installations and all that. I know Mitch Travers has been working on getting the range in, and I think we're waiting on the ball collector. You know, but the driving range should be hopefully opening soon. Besides that, you know, we're looking at what can we do at Palo Duro. Mr. Bermudez and I drove by there today, and let me tell you, options galore. There is a lot of options we could do. I've talked about using the houses or the offices that are there in different perspectives, almost like a recreational center. We talked about making some pickleball, paddleball courts towards the, you could say the back end towards the hill where the offices were, or and then and trying to get an idea of what holes are usable, what holes are not usable, and maybe even bringing back 9 holes for the meantime. We have our school, the Nogales High School, that has a golf team, and even for practice, it would be good for them. Right now, unfortunately, the nearest golf course is Tubac. I know it wouldn't be something where they could compete, but there's things that I talk with. I used to play more golf than I do now, but I understand the game, and maybe it's we could maneuver some holes to put 2 tees where you then play around and hit from a different tee and make it extended instead of making it 9 holes, bring it up to 18 or something like that. But there's a lot of things we could do. Like I said, I've been getting calls, about talking with residents around that area, suggestions of getting people to sponsor a hole, sponsor a hole and pay an X amount for the sponsorship for that hole to maintain it or something like that. There's a lot of options, and there's growth areas that we saw. I think bringing the 18 would be a little bit more difficult because there are some holes that, wow, I looked at them today, and even though I played that course a lot, you had trouble. Where did this hole? How did it go? What was the next hole? But there's areas to grow. There's areas to grow with soccer fields, baseball fields, recreational, canopies, and maybe even some sand volleyball, whatever, more pickleballs or anything. I think there's a lot of potential for recreational growth there. So I'd like to hear if you guys have had any discussions with neighbors or community people on, continuing with this. Suggested to Mr. Bermudez that we should get, like a plot of the area that we have for the city that we own, and really look into what holes are easier or better to bring back than others, and then also see what areas we can promote to bring back or to start looking at some future parks and improvements on it. So I open the floor to any questions or comments. Mr. Vice Mayor.
Rene, do you know what the condition of the irrigation is there? No, it's because it hasn't been used in a long time, so that would be a big expense. And then the equipment to maintain the golf course, do we have any of that equipment?
We have the one that we use for the fields that could be used and what we're cutting up there, but not specifically to maintain golf course.
And then
We're looking at a different set of items there.
And you would use this as a walking course, right, instead of using carts? Because I don't know that we have any carts too.
Yeah, those are things that we got to look into. maybe get sponsorships and find fundings and I saw one of the areas where I figured some irrigation comes out and it was missing a connection. So yes, I understand there's needs and that's what we got to look into. What is needed? How, try to get a value to what we have. And, obviously I understand, there is going to be, bumps on the road, definitely, issues with, if we do test the water, system and all that, we'll find plugged, leaks and everything. But, we won't find them until we look for them. Go ahead.
And
Go ahead.
And does this include the restaurant part, or is just the?
No, the whole thing. We got to look at.
Because I had a gentleman approach me one time and ask me if the city was renting that, and he was interested in putting up a restaurant there.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
I think the short-term goal of the golf course right now, talking to Public Works Director, Parks and Rec, is to make it a viable driving range. We have the equipment to mow the lawn, or the grass, actually, not the lawn, the grass, to make it a viable driving range. We have the machine. We're just waiting for something to pick up the balls. And then we have the funding to renovate the actual buildings there. And Renee can give us a small update on that, if you would, Renee, please.
Yeah. Since last year, we've tried to work with local architects, initially thinking our quote wasn't going to come in that high. But because we ran into a lot of roadblocks, we don't have original plans for the building. So therefore, it adds a lot more because we have to look at the electricity, the plumbing. Our quote came in at $140,000 just for architectural plans to begin renovation of it. So I sat with Mr. Guerra yesterday. We walked through the building. We're coming up with some different ideas to get quotes so that we are able to move forward without spending more on the architectural plans, but being able to put that money towards actually renovating the buildings.
Okay. Mr. Grayas?
I'm in favor of any upgrades or renovations to that whole area, and it'll benefit the whole community. Walking trails, the pickleball courts, as you stated, all those events will bring the youth back in there and liven up the whole area. In the summer times, when it dries out, it looks really bad, and then there's fire hazards, so we have to upkeep it anyways. So I think we need to conduct an evaluation first of what we have, what we don't, and also look at renting spaces once we renovate it. Golf course, maybe the back nine, a 9-hole, or maybe what everybody's doing now in big cities are those Tiger Woods putting courses, but they're like supersized. They're not like your golf and stuff. They're actual turf golf courses, but just for putting. Something like that, an investment like that, maybe we can attract a company. All those ideas are viable, and anything can be done there. We have a lot of space. We might as well put it to use.
Well, I've had a lot of comments from different folks in the community that are very, they would like to see that golf course come back, whether it's even a 9-hole. They'd like to see the driving range. They'd like to see some kind of food vendor to be there. And like Mr. Gradia said, what other options we have in renting out space over there, or to make it more attractive, bring more people to it. It all depends what businesses would make those attractions. But the main thing is that most of the folks that live out there, the ones that I've spoken to are all in favor of. And that's they feel that most of the residents over there are definitely strongly in favor of bringing back that golf course. So it's one of the things they point out, and avid golfers, that before, I guess when it was shut down, we had a golf course in Keno Springs. We had one in Rio Rico, but now we don't. So who knows how well it'll sustain itself, and especially we go through different funding, because I did hear also about some people willing to sponsor a hole, and something that needs to be kind of discussed more thoroughly to see what their actual, sponsorship would actually do. But yes, there's because of the support, that makes it easy for us to explore all those options and probably come up with the right solution. I hate always going through getting different expenses that we have, like through cost analysis things, and also I would like to see maybe the city at least give us a good idea. We have our engineer over here. I think we have access to some folks. Maybe there's somebody out there that would even want to volunteer some of their time to bring it back. That has that ability, or architectural ability, or whatever, to just kind of help the city give us an idea, or at low cost, and instead of just these companies that they figure, it's a government entity, it's a city of Nogales, it'll be so much. No, this is a community project, really. It's for the good of the community, and I think there's some people out there that provide services at a lower cost, and just getting, anyone to give us a high quote to say. And then we have Mr. Kissinger also still here, that has a lot of past experience with the things that have gone on down there. I'm sure he would be an asset to our city manager and staff on ideas, especially to your department, and so we need to kind of pull together, put our resources together, first get a good idea of what it's going to entail, and then we'll take it from there. That's my suggestion, but I believe we need to bring it back. I'm really for that. I think it would be a great asset again for the community, especially for the folks that live out there. We know that will raise the value of their homes, and it makes our community more prestigious. So that's about right now all I have to say. Down the road, well, we can always discuss it more.
Anybody else? And, and just to finish out, this is why, Mr. Bermudez, do you have any comments on it?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Doyle, this afternoon, obviously, Mr. Mayor said that we took a ride over there. There's a lot of potential. One of the things that we're looking at is a quick return of our investment, which I believe will be the driving range. From there, we want to make it viable to turn around as quick as possible. So a couple of months ago, Renee applied for a grant throughout the Horo for some walking trails. Hopefully we'll be limited. Hopefully we get that, and we'll be limited by the amount of money that we get granted, hopefully. So we're working on it. This afternoon when I came back, met with Mr. Kissinger. He has a lot of institutional knowledge and historical knowledge about that course. You're right. So I was asking him about the water. The mayor had some questions about the water. There's water pumps out there, but talking to Renee, they're not connected. They don't have electricity. So I'm pretty sure once those are repaired and put to use, there are probably going to be a lot of water leaks around where the sprinkler systems used to be and stuff like that. So that's going to be something that I'm researching as we speak. But again, the quick return on investment would be the driving range and the making sure that we work on the clubhouse and all of those buildings, like Councilman Gradilla says, the possibility of making it a half recreation, half office space, half, whatever it is to rent. I think as long as we get some positive cash flow back to the city and a quick turnaround, that's my goal.
If I might also add, one of the programs that we had years ago was working with the Sheriff's Department on bringing their, less people that are detained that are lower security risk, that go out into the community and roads, and they trim the weeds and grass or whatever it is that they clean up. In other words, it's they would lend us those teams, and it would reduce the cost of the city to be cleaning up. And over there, now with the rain starting, before you know it, you're going to have a lot of growth that's going to need to be attended, but it's going to be throughout the community. So if we can get some further assistance, maybe from the sheriff's office and releasing some of that help, it would help overall. So I just thought I'd mention that because we're in the season of the weeds getting out of control.
The mayor and I we met yesterday with USDA, and I was under the impression that USDA just checks fruits and vegetables, but they have a huge grant program. We talked about the golf course, and there's grants that deal with golf courses and infrastructure. So I'm currently looking at that also.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, so, just start thinking, let's do an assessment. Mr. Bermudez and Ms. Travers are going to look at that and see what, and it's not just for the residents, it's for the whole community. Let's not look at it, because then we'll need to put a pickleball court in every residence or every neighborhood, and that's not the purpose. The purpose is, where can we develop city property to benefit the community? That's what it's all about, benefit the whole community. So thank you, Renee, and we'll look forward to seeing what we can do. Thank you, everybody. Next item, D, discussion regarding process and procedures for support of community events. I put this, Mr. Machado, want to take lead on this? Huh? Give us your explanation, because I don't have it.
Let me, if you guys will bear with me, let me explain what I think the policy requires now. And then let me suggest a simplification of the policy that will give you guys a lot more control than accomplishing the same thing without going through all the gymnastics that we do here.
There you mic.
The policy divides the city events into two types, okay? Number one is the city events, city community events that are organized solely by the city, that nobody else sponsors, nobody else helps. The city organizes those. And the examples I always use is the 4th of July festivities, the Christmas parade, or any other event that the city decides that we're going to put on, okay? And those types of events, the city decides the funding, the resources, the use of equipment, everything. And everything is open because it's a 100% city event. The other type under the policy is events within the city. There's city events or cities that are occurring within the city, but they're not organized by the city of Nogales. And those are events, the organizers come to the city and request support, that the city support their event. Now that support can take two types of support can be requested. Number one, they can request funding, or they can request the use of city equipment, so on, manpower, police, so on, or they can request both. Okay. Now, if they request only in-kind services, which are defined as manpower, personnel, nothing else, then that is directed to the city manager, and he makes that determination whether that can be done. If it requests any dollar amount in addition to the use of equipment and property, then that has to come to the city designated as a Class A event, okay? The others are designated B, C, and D, and depending on the value of the in-kind services, the city manager determines what's going to be given, at what level, okay? Now, what I would suggest is because the policy is cumbersome, I would suggest the same type of process, but simplified, that we put it into those events that are requesting funding, equipment, use of personnel, and so on, that those be automatically go to the council. And council determines which ones they're going to sponsor, the amount of the funding, if any, the equipment, the tables, all that stuff that's going to be allowed. And then the second category is those events that are requesting nothing but in-kind services, the use of our personnel, manpower, incidental use of equipment like barricades or something like that. And if that's all they're requesting, then that go to the city manager and staff can make that determination if we're able to do that. The big items, the supports that are, those events that are requesting the funding or the equipment more than the in-kind, the equipment, the tables, generators, whatever it is, then that those go straight to the council. There'll be two categories. It goes to the council. We can establish, or I can suggest, an application process that's either made to the council and one that's made to the city manager if they're not requesting the other items. I think we can simplify it, and then that way we can ensure that the policy is always adhered to in the future. And then, as we've indicated, we'll get away from things being done differently depending on the type of event and so on and so forth. That's my suggestion.
Mr. Machado, right now I think the question was more, so how do we value the in-kind besides hours on materials?
You don't have to value it.
But you right now said, you need to know how many chairs, tables, and tents.
No, I said what you need. That's not in kind, okay? First of all, under the present policy, that's not considered in kind. Figure it this way: in kind is only the use of our manpower and personnel. Everything else is not in kind. Okay. Whoever makes the application, if that includes anything else other than personnel and manpower, then it's got to come to you, even under the current policy. It has to be designated a Class A and so on. So all I'm suggesting, though, is that when that application is made, you still have to itemize the type of support that you want or that you're requesting.
Councilman Doyle?
Just so I'll get a clear understanding of what you just said. In other words, okay, so you itemize the different items that are going to be used, but in kind is only in man hours. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
And the rest, the city doesn't put any value on it.
So I'm not saying.
Okay, when you say in kind, okay, you're not putting the amount for the chairs, for the tables, for the porta potties, for the barricades, for all those extra, generators, whatever it is, like you said, that's not taken into account as a cost for in kind.
No, it's not considered in kind. That's what I'm saying.
So that cost value is not added to the value or to the cost of the overall coverage that the city provides for an event.
It is, depending on what you're asking, okay? Let's say I'm an organization, okay? And I'm putting on an event. And I'm thinking it's going to be a marathon run through the city of Nogales, okay? I don't need any equipment. I don't need any chairs. I don't need anything hard from the city.
Barriers. You're going to need barriers.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If it's incidental equipment, it could go under the category that I'm suggesting, the category that goes to the city manager. If all I'm asking for is in-kind officers, so on, this and that, and that includes incidental stuff like the barricades, then that goes to the manager. Okay. Now, the other category I'm suggesting would be if I'm putting on this marathon, but I sure need $2,000 to do the publication. I need $2,000 to pay my organizer. And on top of that, I need the use of the city generator so I can put on my sound system. And I need the use of your chairs and your tables.
And porta potties.
And the porta potties, okay? That would be the application. And that type of application, because it's more than personnel and manpower, it would go to the council. And the council would determine how much of what they're requesting are we going to give. You know, and you could value it however you want in your discussion, but it'll be totally up to you. We could submit an application or create an application process where that type of information is included in the application. It'll either go to you or it'll go to the city manager, and you'll have all that information before you when you make your decision. I think we can simplify all that.
Go ahead, Councilman. Good idea.
So initially, to start the process, we need an application. It goes to city manager. Then he determines whether it's a class A, B, C, or D, and reference what it is. He can approve it, B to E. And if it falls under the A, he brings it to council.
No, even in the manner that it is now, like it's kind of convoluted. You were right when we were going over the policy, right? Even now, it's the council that designates it as the Class A. And is the Class A, then the whole thing is open, okay? But it's you who designated it as a Class A. But the way the policy's written, it can only be a Class A if you're requesting more than manpower or personnel, okay? And that's how it is now, okay? And my suggestion is we don't get into all the other types of categories. We don't get into valuing the personnel, the amount of the personnel requested and so on. That should be the discretion of the city manager. If they're asking for 5 policemen and he can only spare 3, well, that's the way it is, you know. But that should be his discretion. But the other types of items, when we start using equipment and everything else on top of that, or funding, hard funding, that has to be to you. So it really depends on what they're asking for. If they're asking for all the other stuff, then it's automatically going to go into whatever category you want to label to the council. If they're not asking for all the hard stuff, then it'll go to the city manager. That's how it is now, okay? But it's in a much more convoluted way. So, for example, the art gallery that's making the request. When the request is put in writing, it'll be really easy to see if the city manager can okay it, or it's something that comes up to the council.
So these are done in a case-by-case basis, or can we go ahead and designate some of the events that we annually have as Class A's or whatnot?
You can in your budgeting process, those events that you know are going to be, that requests are going to be made and that they're class A, or I'm just using that class A, we can designate however, then those you can specify, and then you can fund a certain amount, or you can fund a lump sum amount for that type of event. And then as they make applications during the year, then you can allocate those funds.
Follow up. So in response to the one that was presented earlier today, if it would have been presented as a request for a Class A, then we could have moved on it. Or how do we designate, how do we get to the Class A? How do we get anywhere?
Okay. If you're asking for anything more than personnel,
Which in this case
manpower,
they were.
okay, then it automatically comes a Class A, even under this policy, and has to come to
So
the,
then it should have just been worded differently on the agenda and we could have moved on it?
yes. But again, the request has to be itemized because you need information before you decide the level of support that you're going to give.
Vice Mayor?
Mr. Machado, is there a limit on Class A events? Because, somebody hears, listens to the meeting and says, I want to make an event, and I want to need the in-kind service from the city and maybe some funding, so I'll ask first to be a Class A event. So is there a limit on how many Class A events the city can support?
The only limit is your funding and your discretion. You can have as many or as little, and you can fund them as little and as much as you want.
Yeah, but that has to be determined during the budgetary session, right?
Yes.
So we don't know in the year who will come in and want to hold an event.
Well, if you know of a certain organization that you know is going to ask for that type of funding, you could itemize that in the budget, or you can just budget a lump sum amount in your budget. And then as people come in and make applications, then you're going to have to start allocating using that $100,000. It's just like you give $100,000 for equipment for the fire department. Okay? When they're buying equipment during the year, they're keeping in mind how much they're spending, how much they've spent, and how much they've got left and what they need. It would be the same process for you guys. You would budget $100,000, and then as applications are come in, you have to make a decision what you're going to fund and how much you're going to keep in reserve for other applicants. But that's what the council does.
Thank you. Thanks.
Ms. Montero?
So with that in mind, excuse me, so that in mind, it's, the categories are just there as a way of just kind of, just to the amount of support the city gives. Really, that's all. It doesn't obligate us to say, okay, this event, because it's categorized as category, or it's placed on category A, we have to give them this funding that we're requesting. Of course not. Okay, thank you.
Councilman Doyle?
Yes, so going back to your last statement before Councilwoman Montiel asked the question, I was looking at that you said the funding that they request. Are you talking about dollars or are you talking about the in-kind?
Dollars.
Okay, that's, so if there's a certain amount, then that's like all the Class A events draw from that.
Right.
In dollar wise. And once that money's gone, then it's done.
That's, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Montiel?
So just so the public can know, because it's sort of a new thing here, and it's nice that we're going to follow policies now, but there's going to be like the Hilltop asking for the city to help them out. And so we tonight even clarified what in-kind really means. So what you're saying, you're kind of saying that in-kind only involves personnel.
That's what the policy.
That's what the policy says. But let me show you these special events expenses that was given to the council. So, for example, if you look at, I don't know, what's a good one here? 4th of July. The in-kind was for the 4th of July for in-kind, bear with me because there's a lot of things here. The in-kind for 4th of July, for example, you guys see the in-kind was 10,000. Okay. So that includes, I don't know if Roy did this, who did this, the $10,000, does that include, that's just employee hours?
I don't know how that's calculated.
See, that's what,
But,
okay,
but let me make a distinction though.
yeah.
The 4th of July is a city.
Yeah, let's not use that one. Let's use the Buffalo Soldiers, okay? In-kind was $465, and that's in-kind employee hours, okay, and overtime. So, and also has here, they've asked for chairs without an amount, PA system without an amount, chairs without an amount. But what you're saying now is next time when they fill out an application, there has to be amounts there.
Well, there has to be an itemization.
Well, with amounts.
No, not with the amounts. The amounts, the funding takes, their application is, I need 4 police officers. I need 10 chairs. and 20
But Mr. Martello, the reason, I don't want to argue, but that's what she did right there. She put security, toilets, personnel, chairs without any amounts, and it's itemized.
But it has to be a Class A.
And she's not a Class A.
That makes
Okay.
it a Class A.
Okay, so that makes it a Class A, and we have to bring it back in the agenda to make Class A. So here in the chairs, PA system, and whatever, there's not an amount. They're just saying the city loan them these
The
this
city,
stuff.
when you discuss, an application comes into you and I want the chairs, the equipment, and this and that. In your discussion, I'm sure that you will put values on it. And you're saying, wait a minute, that's too much. We can't do that right now. You know?
So it doesn't have values.
Yeah, we'll give you this, we'll give you that, and there's some stuff that you can value, some that you can't. But in your discussion, that's when you determine the level of support.
Yeah, so like, for example, the barricades, we can't put a value to it because it's owned by the city.
Could, but then you get very complicated and convoluted at that point. And that's why I use the word incidental. Incidental use of equipment, which would include, and we're not, and that'll cover everything, the flashlight.
Yeah, so it is fair to say that the city the contribution, if you're event that the city's contribution can be in kind.
I'm sorry, say that again now?
So for example, the city's only obligation, if we vote on it, could only be, if we vote on it, could be in kind. This is our contribution. The city's contribution to any of these events, regardless of if they're the in-kind is the part that the city, if we vote on it, that's our part.
No, because if you're asking if they came in with a request for only in-kind, which would be personnel and manpower, it would never get to you.
Okay.
It would never get to you. But if it gets to you, that means that they're asking for much more. Now, in connection with that much more, will include the manpower and all that stuff they need then.
Yeah, even though it's taxpayers' money.
Well, because it's taxpayers.
But you're saying that it there has to be.
Okay, keep in mind this. All of this that we're doing, and all the amounts or support that you give, still must meet the requirements of the gift cost.
Exactly. That's why I'm bringing all this up.
Just because we're saying we're supporting this event that doesn't mean that it just, every other legal requirement is thrown out. There's always the gift clause, and that applies to every funding or support that comes out of the city. Now, the first, and we're assuming that all these events are benefit the city, the public health, welfare, and safety of the city, that the city is getting something in return, okay? Whether it be education services, cultural services, and so on. I don't think that's going to be an issue on the type of requests that are made for community events that are requesting funding. I don't think that's going to be the issue. The issue is how much you want to support them.
I just have one more question. So, for example, if I recall, we couldn't give a donation to the veterans. You had said that we could not give them a donation, pay for the food, and that became a big scandal. Can you explain that?
Well, I don't recall all the details on it, but at that point, there was a question of whether or not it had been designated a Class A. Okay. Had it been designated a Class A and that decision made by the council, then yes, you could do funding.
Yeah, it is a Class A.
Well, I don't know whether it is or was designated.
It is. It's a Class A.
Well, no, I'm not saying it is. Was it designated in that manner back when they were requesting the funding?
No, and I get you. I'm talking about now. It is designated a Class A, and yet we couldn't give them a donation. Okay. It's healthy conversation because it's we haven't really followed the policy. And yesterday I asked, and thank you very much for writing this memo and explaining the categories and so forth. There's still a little bit of a confusion, like you say, it's complicating. But the bottom line is it's up to us to vote on any type of donation, contribution, whatever you want to call it, to whatever entity that is asking, period.
And I believe that we can, the current policy is a little bit convoluted. I think we can simplify it as I suggest and try to do that if that's your direction. And then I think it'll be a lot easier to implement in the future.
Mayor?
Councilman Gradius, go ahead.
And also, we got to keep in mind that whether it's designated an A or not, we still decide the level of support, whether it be in kind, only in kind plus, and if they're asking for cash, we can cap it at whatever the council
But whatever
decides.
level of that support is going to be determined by you.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions? So, so how do we go about the in-kind right now?
What do you mean? I like in-kind to whom?
No, we got another item that's gonna have in-kind. Do we have all the details? You want,
If there is a request for support from this council, then you have to determine what the request is. What are they requesting?
in kind. So what does that
Then
determine?
it's under this policy, in kind is personnel and manpower. That's all this, under the current policy, that's all it is. So if they're requesting only personnel and only manpower, then it can go to the city manager if the value of that is less than 1,000. If the request is more than 1,000, whether it be in kind or funding directly or so on, then it has to come to the city council.
Are we on E already, or we're still just talking?
No, basically, prior to getting to that point, want to get, before I leave this item, get clarification. And what if it doesn't have the amounts or anything?
Well, again, in order to make an informed decision,
We need all the information.
Information has to be supplied to the council. whomever the applicant is.
So may I, Mayor?
Go ahead.
So there has to be an application. And I don't see an application attached to item D, but
Well, we don't have an application process per se on Class A's, but whatever you wanna label it or
Label it,
call it,
whatever, yeah.
that information has to be presented to the council.
Yeah.
So you can make an informed decision.
Okay.
So I think, in general, we gotta correct the rule book.
That's what I'm suggesting.
Correct the rule book and Mr. Bermudez, I don't know if we look into process of applying for these events, process of going from A to Z, basically an application, amounts on in-kind, and what does in-kind inquire? Is it just personnel? Is it, like you said, we're not going to put a value on the porta potties, on chairs, on tables, on tents, and stuff like that, but it's going to take you manpower to put them and take them away. And besides that, is there, something besides that, I think we go, which is monetary, that's another thing. Am I correct, Mr. Michelle?
Yes.
And then basically look at the process and the applicant, I don't know, if we don't have one, we got to create one. We got to create an application form where everything is jotted down, I dotted, T's crossed, and make it, what it should be. So we, obviously don't want to break down policies and be correct on our actions and go from there. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I agree. I mean, we're all talking about applications. However, there's no tangible application, and I believe we need to come up with one. That way we can decide, or I can decide, if this needs to go beyond my office to get approval by council or not. And that way we remain transparent and consistent with every event that's going up in the future or has gone up in the past. And that way we have a written record of their request itemized. And I totally agree with that, and I'll start working on that.
Okay, and, I agree that, I think that concurs with my strategy last time of looking at all the events. If there's something missing on the events, that's, or some events that are missing, obviously, we want to try to support the community and make more events. But if we need to put on events and start categorizing by letters, by numbers, or whatever, but let's just get this in-kind specified correctly, and divided by manpower and equipment, because I totally thought in-kind basically is what are your manpower going to do? Put chairs, put tables, and stuff like that. So, any other comments?
Yes, my understanding was manpower, the labor, is what is in kind. The equipment and everything else is something else?
Right.
Okay. So again, in kind will be actually labor and manpower and
Personnel and service.
personnel case, maybe setting up and cleaning up if they're used.
Well, setting up and setting up would necessarily involve setting up of city equipment, chairs and all that stuff. If that's the case, it's more than in kind.
Okay. How about when they clean like the streets after an event of all the whatever.
Services, that would be services.
So that's manpower.
Not but services that we provide. The city provides cleaning.
Okay, so that's not even taking account and into the manpower, into the labor of the city.
Yes, it is in the service that you provide. I mean, you can value that. And that's something that the city manager will do. If somebody says, this is my event, all I'm asking for is in-kind services, but I need 20 police officers and I'm going to need the sweeper for 10 hours to clean up the mess and stuff, then he's going to put a value on that. And he's going to say, well, you know what, we can't give you that type of support. Then have to put an exact dollar value on it, but he can say, we can't get to that level. But that's going to be his call. Unless you want, this is what I'm suggesting, and making it a two-tier system. Those types of things, city manager and staff should handle. The big items that call for money and all kinds of other support should be the first tier, which would be that's what I'm suggesting, and we could work on it, bring it to you, and you decide how you want to do it.
Okay. Thank you.
Where do we go?
Move on.
Move on? Everybody agree? So, Mr. Bermudez, we need to look at this. Thank you. Item E, discussion direction, possible action funding for the September 16, 2023 Fiesta Podcast. Ms. Lopez, can I ask Mr. Machado, are we okay to vote on this, or do we have the correct paperwork?
I mean, that's a decision you're going to have to make,
Huh?
whether or not you have enough information regarding this funding. I don't know. The way it's worded on the council, on the agenda, you can decide the funding, okay? But you're pretty much limited to the funding issue because the way it's agendized. I would suggest, if we have time, I would suggest an application with all the required information. How much funding, how much this, how much that.
Go ahead, Ms. Melendez.
Mr. Mayor, May 24th, the Cultural Arts Committee sent you a request for funding the event. We also send you a copy of the budget for the event of Fiestas Patrias, itemizing each of the things that we needed. So you have these since May 24th. I never got any question about it till the last meeting. So I don't know what other information do you need. It's here. This is what we're requesting, and what we're requesting is an A category event. By the way, first of all, I want to let you know I would abstain from any thing regarding this particular thing because I'm on the board of the cultural art events, okay? So I did the request, but I would not be able to vote on it.
Okay, yeah. Go ahead, Councilman Bonilla.
I make a motion just to fund this event. We've done it in the past. So pretty cut and clear. We can't make that motion.
No, you can make the motion, but say fund the event, it goes back to what we were talking about. Fund, what does that mean?
What does it mean?
How much?
Well, then make a motion to approve this event.
Well, I'm not being difficult, I'm not, okay? We walk out of this meeting here and say, the event has been approved. What does that mean? Does that mean, how much did you approve for funding? Did you approve anything else? That's what I'm saying. It's within your discretion, but just be clear on what you're approving so staff knows what to do.
Yeah. Mayor?
Councilwoman, go ahead.
They're still asking.
Montiel.
Okay, so as I'm reading it, Mr. Machado, it says, like you say, discussion, direction, and possible action. Funding. So I'm assuming the funding is what, may I have that, Mrs. Lopez? The funding
This?
is, the funding is what Mrs. Lopez is asking. I'm asking you a question. Is this what she's asking for $10,550?
If that's what was submitted, I don't have.
I don't know. I don't have it on my, on my book either, on my information.
It's there.
It's attached?
Yes.
Okay. So it's attached to our, okay.
Page 9.
Because I know we all received a letter, she's right, received a letter that the Cultural Arts Committee is asking for the $30,000 and $10,000 would be for the Fiestas Patrias. So now it goes to $10,550. She's asking $10,550 to go to the Fiestas Patrias. If I had asked Mr. Bermudez for a breakdown of the in-kind monies that go to the Fiestas Patrias, and the in-kind is that last year was $4,350.86. This year was, $5,059.66. Okay.
There was Fiestas de las Flores.
Fiestas de las Flores. Okay, so let's go to Fiestas Patrias. I'm sorry. There's just a lot of stuff here. In kind, last year's, last year, the Fiestas Patrias has spent $3,148.20. That is in kind spent, the city, the taxpayers spent $3,148.20 in kind. In addition to that, she's making a request to pay another $10,550 in addition to the in-kind that the Cultural Arts Committee already gets from the city of Nogales.
Let me
Mike.
weigh in on that a little bit. Whoever the organization is, does not get anything from the city unless it's approved by this council. Okay, so if the request is for funding only, then that's all they're going to get. If it's request for the in-kind, the personnel and so on, then again, that's decided by you. They don't automatically get what they got last year. In other words, let's say those figures are correct regarding the value of in-kind services last year.
Well, they're given by the finance department.
Okay. Let's assume they're correct then. Okay? That's what they got last year.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that they're entitled to it this year, nor does it mean that they're requesting that this year. I don't know if you are or not. I don't know what the request is. What I'm saying is that's within what the level of support that you give is up to this council. Oh.
And I don't mean to be difficult either, but for me, this has been, let's go back to the Fiestas de las Flores. That was back in May. It says here, and this is the public document from the finance department, that they spent $5,559.66 in kind. That's what they have, in kind, Class A
But the
events.
problem with that, Councilwoman, is that I'll bet you what you want, that there's in-kind services in that calculation that are outside the definition of the policy.
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not the expert.
All right, well, that's what I'm saying. I question that amount because of that, number one. And number two, it doesn't make any difference. What you gave them last year or what we spent last year on anything, what's before you is what the request is now.
And what is the request now?
Well, that's,
The
I understand
10,000?
it is limited to that funding unless,
So the request right now is $10,550.
right.
Aside from, even though they haven't filled out an application for the in-kind and all of that.
No. If it's a request for funding, everything else in connection with that request has to be decided by you. So if they're requesting in-kind services and so on, it should be made as part of that
And
request.
it hasn't.
Well-
That's why we're confused.
Well, no, if maybe they're not requesting it. I don't know.
Okay, well, maybe they're
Okay,
not. I don't
if they're
know.
not, then the only thing before this council is that funding amount, okay? If they think that tomorrow they can come and make a separate application here. That won't, that.
So if I go back to see Fiestas de las Flores, for example, the in-kind, I mean, it's right there, 5,000. If I was to do a public request to see how they spent the 5,059, then I would be able to see it there, the breakdown. How did the city come up with that? If I do a public, if anyone in the public says, oh, I want to know how my taxpayer money went to, for 5,000, 5,059.96.
Mr. Mayor, the amount of in-kind is solely labor. It doesn't include
but
any
still,
equipment or anything. So the amount of hours of overtime were tallied, and that's what it came out to.
Okay,
To support
Or regular.
or regular time.
so
So-
that 5,000 was over regular time and it was part-time. I mean,
One or the other.
Overtime.
what, John? It's because too many people are talking.
I'm sorry. I was the one who prepared the
Okay.
spreadsheet for you, and if you look at the spreadsheet, could I borrow it real quick, Councilman? That spreadsheet? Specific to write down that it's labor in kind.
Yeah.
So all this is the hours paid for the employees to make sure that the event happened. The only thing I want to caution you about, if you approve a in-kind amount for an event that is held on public property, such as in front of the placita, and let's just assume that the council said, we're only going to approve $10 in labor, the city manager should jump up and say, wait, time out. I'm going to need to put resources to support this event to make it safe for the public. So as in the past, we brought any event that we're going to have to the council for an approval to make it a Class A event. And I'll give you an example. When we did Circles of Peace, remember? We came in, Circles of Peace, they came in and said, hey, we're going to need some help doing this event. Council was able to provide support for that event, I think up to $3,000 or something like that. And it was after consulting with the city manager at the time to see how much resources we need to do that for. When we did Border Theater, they came and made a presentation. I asked mayor and council to please designate that as a Class A event so we could put enough resources there to make it a safe event where everybody would have the bathrooms, have a place to throw the garbage, make sure nobody got run over, and all the things that go along with the event. There was no money. There was no funding given to them. We didn't write any checks.
No, I get that. I get that.
But it's important to know because when we talk about equipment, okay, there could be equipment that is required for the event that the city doesn't have, right? And so now, is it funding or is it in kind? Do we have to rent the generator? Do we have to go get the barricades and what have you? So each one of the events is just a little bit different, and you can't just say, this is the way it is.
Well, no.
You have to look at each one. And I'm sorry, but I want to make sure that I explain this to you. In the past, there is an application process, and Renee fills out every application for a city request for support for an event, except for the Class A events. We've never had an application for the Class A event because those are our events, right? We don't come and ask for an application to do the 4th of July event or the Christmas parade event. And it was our understanding as staff that the fiestas were Class A events because they were funded at one time, right? So was the Veterans Day parade and their event, and so was Memorial Day. Those were the events that we knew were what we understood as staff as Class A events. Okay, so I know there's a lot of talk about that. It's okay if we change it, but we just got to all be on the same page on what we're doing, right?
It's done, but
For the benefit of
and that's why we asked.
And that's what
I've asked before, what you just mentioned that in the past, Fiesta Patrias used to be funded.
Yeah.
How come we haven't got an amount of what we had funded in the past?
I'm gonna have to go back and try to dig it out, Mr. Mayor, but
You know,
I know we funded it. I know because the invoices were brought to me to pay them, Mr. Mayor. I know it wasn't a lot, but it was funded. And Mr. Doyle was on the council. Remember, Mr. Doyle, when we talked about the level of funding for each one of the Class A events? You have that recollection or don't? Right. In the budget, you remember talking about it? I certainly do. So we put some level of funding for some of the events. I know it was a big thing at the time, and we talked about it.
But I don't think we have the Goldwater Institute going on the way they are now. And there's other things that I'm concerned about opening a can of worms, starting to make funds like this event wasn't funded last year, monetarily wise.
We didn't write no checks for that event last year.
No. So.
Or the year before, I believe.
Right. So now what kind of liability are we going to have as a council approving and voting and giving funds for these events?
Right.
That's another can of worms that we haven't even talked about.
But the only thing I caution you about, regardless of whether you fund monetary for this event, if you're going to pay for a stage, pay for the musicians, pay for this, that, and the other thing, please keep in mind that staff needs to provide a venue, especially if we're having it on a city street, that's safe. So please don't say, hey, listen, I can only give you, a couple of bucks in labor. No, because then Roy's going to have an issue because we're going to have to put garbage cans out there. We all know what we got to do. We're going to have to put garbage out there.
John, that's understood. But that's why, my thought, and I think everybody's thought was, when we do in kind, obviously we're going to do the right thing. We're going the city manager's going to look at the event, that he's going to look at, what's needed and make sure we
can do it.
But now, as we go through the meeting, we need to have the person that's applying to specify.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, they should tell us what they need, right?
Yeah, but they're going to tell you, law enforcement tables, chairs, this, but they're not going to give you. They don't know how many PDs they need.
The problem is, like with Liz's event right here, if we were to itemize those out with the labor, right, it's probably gonna go over the threshold of $1,000, and then we're gonna be right back at council saying, do you want this as a Class A event?
Guys, that's what's causing
the problem
here is that we're defining in kind differently from what the policy says.
Right.
All the tables and the chairs and all that stuff, that's not in kind.
The labor alone will possibly be over $1,000. Possibly. But if it's not, then we're good too.
I think what's before the council here is this item, funding. It doesn't, it's not agendized for any other type of support. Okay, so the only thing you've got to decide is the funding and the amount.
So,
period.
Mayor?
Go ahead.
So what you're saying, Mr. Machado, is that tonight, what's in front of us is to decide if we are going to spend taxpayers' money in the amount of $10,550 to fund Fiestas Patrias. And later on, this committee has to turn in an application and make sure that they detail what exactly they need from the city.
No, I didn't say that. Because the application process that we have right now under the current policy doesn't require an application for Class A.
Okay.
It just comes to you. It's obvious under the policy, it's a Class A. So you have to determine the funding amount and anything else that's requested.
Okay, thank you. I'm almost done. Espérate. So that means that in the future, there has to be another agenda item for us to approve their request of what, addition to this, there are other requests that they're asking for.
No, that's up to you. If you want to approve anything else in addition to this at a later meeting, that's an issue that you're going to have to determine, right? It cannot go to the city manager because the mere fact that you have funded it, it becomes a Class A, and Class A's are wholly within your discretion.
Because it's automatically going to be a Class A, that means that all the in-kind for personnel and all that stuff is automatically given to them because they're Class A.
No.
Jeez.
It's only given if you approve it. If it's being requested.
If we approve it tonight.
No. What are they approving? My understanding is they're asking for a certain amount of money.
10,550.
They're not requesting anything else, manpower, personnel. No.
So that's not a given yet because they haven't requested it.
Exactly.
Okay.
And if they request it, it's within your discretion.
It has to come,
It has to come to you.
That's exactly what I said. So the request has to come back to us.
Right.
Later on.
But it's not automatic that it's been given to you, that it will be given because it's a Class A.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah.
Well,
I
that's up to
understand.
you
Yeah,
guys.
it's up to us. Yeah.
In other words, Class A's they could be solely funding. It could be solely equipment and all the other stuff. It doesn't have to be a combination of either. But once you get into funding, once you get into equipment, then or in kind over 1,000, then the only decision that can be made is that decision made by council.
And one last thing, Mayor, if you may, because we're dealing with taxpayers' money, okay? And it's imperative that the taxpayers know that all this in-kind money that's being spent on all the Class A activity events regardless, it's taxpayers' money.
Well,
yeah, the salaries
every
and all of this.
expenditure that you make
It's
or approve, 4th of July, Christmas.
Taxpayers' money, yeah.
It's all taxpayers' money.
But we're talking about today approving 10,550 that is not in kind. It is just, hey, council, would you give us $10,550 to help us with this activity? That's what we're voting on tonight.
That's exactly what you're voting on.
Okay.
Councilman Gradillas, hold on, Mr. Doyle.
I think before we even vote on this $10,550, we need to take into account what the in-kind will be, because if we're adding another 5,000 to this 10,000, then we gotta, they can't have an event without an in-kind.
There will be, based on this application, based on what's on the agenda, there will be no in-kind unless another request is made to the council and the council approves it. So it's all within your control.
Right, but the way if we approve this and we don't approve in kind, we can't have an event.
Not necessarily.
Yeah,
We're looking at about
That's why
$5,000
they're
in
asking for
in-kind.
money, because
You
they
know,
want in-kind
it's very simple.
$10,000.
Excuse me, guys. It's very simple. You know, how can we approve an event if the city manager doesn't have any idea of what he's going to have to put, first of all, law enforcement for safety. You know, second of all, fire department, the staff for, cleaning public works or parks and rec or, it's almost like a blind draw.
Well, that's exactly what I was saying when we were discussing the Hilltop Gallery. We wanted to approve that without any further information.
Well,
It's the same thing. You either.
Well, that's why, Mr. Machado.
Be consistent one way or the other.
I know, but she was putting security, toilets, personnel and chairs. So now we have to do 10 securities, 3 toilets, 5 personnel, 40 chairs.
Again, it all
what I
depends
just
what the
said.
request is.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
this event, we've been doing it for 12 years. And we ask the same thing on in-kind. And correct me, Mr. Kissinger, if I'm wrong. It's the same thing we order every
Yeah,
year
but now
in kind.
legal saying that we can do one with the other.
Let me say, okay, something else has been interjected here.
No,
If part of your request is going to be in kind, then I would suggest that it be completely itemized. What in kind it's going to take, what you're requesting, funding and stuff. I mean,
And I think you're getting us wrong. We're not asking money. Remember, I told you since the last time, we're asking you to take care of those expenses. We're not asking you to give the cultural art events, the cultural committee money. We don't need any money. We want the city to be responsible for the event. That's what we want.
okay, whether you pay these amounts directly or indirectly, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's a funding, so.
So when they say we're asking for $10,000, no, we're asking the city to be responsible for the event. That's what we're asking.
different.
That's different. That's.
Yes.
Now
You're getting
now you
a
want to
different
make it a city
event.
event. And I don't think that's not what the agenda item is. I would suggest that everybody step back and that the request that's being made be itemized. Exactly, that could be part of the itemization. Plus anything else that you think that the event will need.
May I?
Give me,
Go ahead.
Mr. Machado, but then the other thing is, I'm for this event, but, then we come up, okay, can the city pay for X? Can Y and Z? Can the city pay for those?
Well, assuming these are items that are needed to have this event on, it's, yeah.
Well, yeah, but, well,
Mayor?
these are the items, Can we pay them or can't we pay them?
If this is, again, and this is what necessary to put on the event, then yes, I think that's a proper expenditure. It wouldn't be any different than giving them a lump sum and they allocated how they're going to do it.
So, may I, Mayor?
Go ahead now.
Okay, so, and I'm sorry for my ignorance, but so what Mrs. Lopez has just requested, and she's talked about abstaining because she's the president of this Cultural Arts Committee. She's asking for $10,550. She's not asking, like she said, she's not asking the money, but it's the same thing. She's asking for the city, the taxpayers, to pay for $10,550. That's what she's asking for. So it's our decision as city council members to decide if we're going to use it. I have a concern, Mayor and Council, because there are many committees, there are many organizations, there are many other people that want to put events together. And so as a council and me personally, we need to think very carefully. Like Mrs. Weatherby was saying, she's getting sponsors for all of this. She already has it all paid up. She went and got sponsors. My question is, why isn't the Cultura Artes getting sponsors to pay for the $10,550? I'm not asking you, Mr. Judge, I'm just looking at you. And so, like any other activity that takes place in the city, because this is one, and then the other one's coming up. If I saw my list here, the other one's coming up, the Dia de los Muertos, and then so there's basically 3 events that go on. It's the Fiestas de Flores, it's the Fiestas Patrias, which is we're discussing tonight, Dia de los Muertos, and the Casitas. And I added all the in-kind because that's what I've been given, Mr. Machado, and it totals $11,703 of in-kind monies. Okay, maybe I know that you spelled out what in-kind means, and what it entails, but the fact is that This is from the finance department, and they have said they spend the taxpayers spend $11,703 of in-kind funds aside from what they're asking for this event, which is $10,000, because the next one that's coming up is Dia de los Muertos, and this committee will be asking for another $10,000. So they're basically saying, in essence, we want the city of Nogales to fund these activities. My other question I would like to ask, and unfortunately the consulado is not here, I looked at their articles of incorporation, if that's the right word, and it is to celebrate, it's a binational activity to celebrate the both cultures. And I was wondering, like any other committee out there that goes out and finds donations, why aren't they donating? Why wouldn't they donate? Which would help also in funding this type of activity. So I guess it's a question.
Excuse me. I have a person here from the consulado. The consul was supposed to be here, but he's out of town. Okay, yeah, he's here if you have any questions or concerns. But my thinking right now, we've been doing it for 12 years, and it's been within money from sponsors to the city care that we've been spending a lot of money for these past 12 years. Did the constituents care about where the money comes from? It was from different organizations, and we did the events, and it was costing us a lot of money. I have a list here of how much we paid last year for these events. In particular, we paid $45,115 that came from our sponsors. And this is the first time we're asking the city to help us do the event. And my God, they're questioning how much money are we going to spend? Come on, what about the past 12 years? We've been spending that money.
In the past, the city has never sponsored it.
Just in kind. And in kind, like the consulado and the Cultural Arts Committee is the one that is paying for the event. And we don't care. But the thing is that we don't have the money right now. That's what we are asking the city to help us sponsor. The Cultural Arts Committee is going to be paying part of it, and the consulado is also sponsoring the event. It's not only the city. This event is not going to cost $10,000. Okay. It's more money involved.
Thank you for clarifying that. Mr. Doe?
Yes, now that I come to think about it, when Mr. Kitzinger asked me to think back about those times, no, we weren't really, we had it on a Class B, we didn't even have it on a Class A, and also our response to help out was, again, the same thing. Find your sponsors, get the help you're supposed to get. The city will provide the in-kind. But the thing is that we never agreed to give funds, to give money to any of the fiestas. And the thing was, because why? All the other cities here in Arizona, the cities don't provide the funds. They get sponsors, they get, they go out and find whatever money. And when you go down Texas way, well, that's over there you have a big sponsor from Los Tigres del Norte, Ramon Ayala, which takes care of all the southern part of Texas to provide for their festivities, because he's a real patriot and he has the money. But what I'm saying is there's a lot of people here that are Mexican ancestry, and we all want to help, but it's supposed to be funded by individuals or businesses that want to sponsor it. And they need, I think what the committee needs to do is go and knock on doors and start talking to people, and I'm sure then within a couple of weeks, they'll get the money they need. It's the same thing, I think, right now when we were talking about with Mrs. Weatherby, that they have the money. I'm sure that she had to get in touch with people, maybe knock on doors, make phone calls to get the funds they needed to provide for that festival that they want to make, or a music fest. But what I'm saying right now is, again, there's so many questions here on the table over this because we haven't funded this like that, in that manner, with actual tax dollars. And that money is the same money that's supposed to, what are we going to do to provide other services that are more let's just say, city really events that, we still have the Christmas. I don't know, are we going to have enough funds to make it a successful Christmas? Christmas has the Christmas parade, the Christmas activities downtown have a real value. They bring back dollars to the community during that time because that's a time our merchants in those 2 weeks or 3 weeks make almost half of the money they make throughout the years by sales. And those sales are tax dollars to the city. That's the way we benefit. So we need to put the real value on these events, what we get back as a city. And I'm sorry to say, we do appreciate all these other people that are doing events because in a sense it does bring some value, but not equivalent to what they asked for. And that's the thing that Mr. Machado, you stated time and time after how much are we, the city of Nogales, getting back from the money that we put into it. And now we need to put over $10,000 cash, pretty much. We're going to fund it, or that's a request. If we vote on it, we'll fund it. And again, we're supposed to be the good stewards of our taxpayers here in the community. So, if it was legitimate in the sense that, what I'm saying is now we're going to have to start taking all the requests on a regular basis and providing funds that they ask for like these. Where does it stop? We have a lot of legitimate causes here in the city, events. Councilman Bonillas has mentioned some, like the neighborhood center, and I don't know who else you mentioned, but the thing is that once we start giving funds like this, we're going to have a long line. Like if all of a sudden we're saying, hey, come bring your applications here, you're going to get some free money. No, it doesn't work that way. We need to be stewardships of this community. That's why people put us in here. We got to think about the general population and what things are needed here in the community. You might think, eventually it's 10,000 here. I don't know how much it's going to be on the next Dia de los Muertos, and then by the end of the year, heck, 30,000 could have gone into I guess providing services for recreation and parks, maybe putting new swing sets and that kids in general are going to use and the people of our community are going to enjoy day in and day out. And again, we need these events that we need to get our money back. Again, the Christmas parade and all that and everything that goes on downtown helps promote the people that come and buy at our local stores. That give us the big revenue in our tax base. So yes, that's what I'm seeing. And Mr. Machado, you've mentioned it. What is the value that the city of Nogales is getting back? And right now, with the way things are up in the air, I don't feel very comfortable. I sure enough think that we need to really think this out more.
I'm sorry.
Councilman Bonillas.
There is I will agree with Councilman Doyle as far as if it provides what it provides for our constituents and for the city. But I think if we take that angle only, I think that we're heading down a path that's not going to look good with our constituents. As mayor and council, we must never forget to invest in our community. Now, it is at a level of the Christmas parade where Mr. Doyle says that, all this money is made. Yeah, it's Christmas season, obviously. But I'll tell you what money is brought in with these events, with the vendors. And people have a good time. Last time I checked, I think we're 95% Latinos in the city. And we're saying tonight that we don't want to fund this event. What are we telling our constituents? That we don't care? Because this event doesn't provide economic growth? I would say the opposite. I do believe it does promote economic growth. It promotes our city. And if we can be sensitive to our Latino community, which is, I think, 95%, I don't remember the exact percentage, I think that we're sending the wrong message. I am outraged. I am insulted that we've been having this event for 12 years. And all of a sudden, well, we don't know where to go, which direction to go. It's real simple. We all know she's asking for $10,550. And we know for a fact that there's going to be in kind because there need to be police officers. Mr. Bermudez knows how many he needs. So we already, I don't know why we're going through this. This is an event for our constituency.
I know, Mr. Padilla.
It's been done for 12 years, Mayor. And now just break it down.
I've been here for 6 months in this chair, and it's been just mentioned and everything. One, that we used not to fund it. First, Mr. Christian just said yes. Ms. Melendez said we didn't. Like we said, are we opening a can of worms? I want this event to function. I want it. Now, legal said the wording on the agenda, because it's not going to be just this amount. It's going to be more, So where do we go? What do we need? Do we need to put it, table it and bring it back with the correct wording, or what is it we need to do? Huh?
That depends what you want to do. What I'm saying is that the way the agenda, once the item is agenda, your only vote can be whether to approve or not approve the funding in that amount, okay? If that's not what you want to do, and you want to ask for additional information and figure out how much, if any, in kind is going to be needed to complete the package, then I would suggest you table it and get a complete picture, and then you guys can vote.
Okay, Mr. Machado, they bring me these agendas to me, and I think we need to be sitting together and look at the wordings and everything on future agenda items, because for me it's Ms. Melendez. It's I'm going to say embarrassing that the wording on this agenda item does not allow us to correctly do, what we should or what we got to do. But, if this is going to affect the outcome of the event, I think we should table it and reword it so we do the right thing.
Excuse me, I'd rather have you say no than go ahead, table it and wait, and then another meeting, and it's going to be the same thing. And this is almost here, so we have to keep going. I mean, if you are not going to really fund the event, let me know. Say no, and that's it. And I'll find out, and I'll call the other people working with these and try and find out other sources. But just make sure and let us know that you don't want to fund the event. That's it.
No,
that's all we need.
Well, first of all, that's not what I said. That's not what I said. I think we got to look at the wording to make the correct decision and go from there. Any other suggestions? Go ahead, Ms.
Thank you. So we also got different letters. One in particular that I remember, we got one from the Hilltop, actually. And I know some of the council members are talking to other entities in the community about turning and submitting letters and requesting funds. So that is for me a problem. And it's just so the consulado and the rest of the people understand that for me, it's not a matter of not appreciating my culture or my heritage or whatever have you. It is a matter of public funds. That's how I see it. It's a matter of public funds. It's not about the emotional part of it. Who doesn't celebrate our culture and our heritage? Who isn't proud of being a Mexican American? These events have been funded through in kind for years and years. Even when Mr. Machado was an attorney, it was funded through in kind. Because I went back and looked at all of this, and every year they fund the Arte de Cultura through in kind, meaning whatever in kind dealt with or entailed last year or so forth. Setting up, cleaning, bathrooms, the whole thing. That's what it really entailed. And then we might not have a price to it, like Mr. Kissinger says, but we also provided the in-kind in terms of the value for the employees setting up and cleaning up and being their security for the firemen and all that. The city, the public is paying for all of that and has been paying for that for years. 12 years, is it, Mrs.?
Yes.
12 years the city residents, taxpayers have been giving out this money to fund these activities. The question today, it's not about a cultural heritage or anything of that sort. It's do we want to use taxpayers' money, $10,500, to fund in addition to the in-kind that she's going to have to submit, this committee's going to have to submit to see how much that would cost. Are we willing as a council, like Mr. Machado said, we're voting if we're wanting to vote and pay $10,500 tonight? That's the question. That's how I see it.
Mr. Dora?
Again, I feel strong about the cultural background that I have, being a Mexican American. But at the same time, we have a job here to be good stewards. And again, I'll counter what Councilman Bonilla said, that we're sending the wrong message. I think the voters here, the citizens of our community, they've already sent us a message, because if you look at the 4th of July, you'll see the crowd that was there. I mean, thousands of people out there on the field. When we have the Fiestas de Mayo, there was more people in the event of the bicycles or the relays and everything else that was going on in the morning. In the evening, there weren't that many people. And if you look at most of the events, we get a few hundred that attend. So that's something that you kind of also have to evaluate. And the thing is, I think the citizens of this community first want us to be good stewards of their tax dollars. And that's where I'm standing on. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Mr. Machado, even if this item is voted yes or no, it still has to come back to the council for approval of in-kind service?
I'm sorry.
Even if this item on the agenda is voted yes or no, do they still have to come back for the in-kind service?
Well,
because we're voting on the funding only.
you're voting only on the funding, that amount, right? If additional request for in-kind is made, it still has to come back to you.
So if we table it, they can bring the whole package in, and then we can vote on that.
Yes. You could table it, make the whole package again, but either way, if whatever you do on this one, and assuming this goes through the funding, any additional request still has to come back to you.
Councilwoman Lopez mentioned that, even if it's voted no, she would go look for other sponsors. Even if she does that, she still has to come back for the in-kind.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Councilor Gradius?
Well, let me suggest something. Should have to come back to asks for in-kind if that's what the request is, okay? If in-kind services are not requested, that doesn't mean that they're not going to be required by the city. Does that make sense?
Go ahead, then I'll go.
I have a question for Mr. Bermudez. Sitting here listening to us going back and forth, I think we failed to ask whether we have the resources and whether you would recommend us funding this as the city manager.
I don't want to recommend because I'm not authorized to recommend because this would be considered a funding issue and that makes it a Class A, which solely is a discretion of mayor and council.
Do we have the available funds to approve something like this? Maybe that's a finance question.
There was $150,000 budgeted for agency assists. And 50,000 went to the chamber, 50,000 went to the Port Authority, and we have 50,000 to be used at the discretion of mayor and council for events such as this or anything that you deem necessary. I guess, do we have the funding? The answer would be yes.
Thank you. For service contracts. Right, the 150?
It could be, but at the end of the day, it's your decision what you want to use those 50,000. Do you want to use it for service contracts? Do you want to use it for something like events like the Fiestas Cultural, Dia de los Muertos, Nogi Fest, whatever comes up? It's totally up to you. But do we have the funding? The answer is yes, but that's your decision.
Councilman Doyle.
Yes, again, we have 50,000 to spread a long ways. And how we're going to do it, it's up to us. And I think there's a lot of other things that we could use those 50,000 on that would really provide for parks and whatnot for the community, for the kids. We can think of, if we really discuss it, we can really bring out some very good things. But the thing is that a can of worms we're opening by funding this, now everybody else in need, the same need of those funds are going to want to squeeze out the last few dollars that we have to provide for the whole community. And I think we're setting a bad precedent because we haven't actually given money to any of these organizations like this, and especially at that high cost when we're already providing in services from within the city and other things. Again, I believe that we need to think about what we're going to do with what the small amount of money that's left, and that's my my stand on it, and also not to open another can of worms. It's going to come back to haunt us.
Mr. Bodea, you want to say something?
Mayor, I voiced the concern on way back when we were having a discussion on when we were doing the budget about funding nonprofits, period. Last time we approved 2 at 100 grand. I voted, I approved, I vote. So now we're concerned. Now we want to slam the brakes on everything. Now we're being frugal with our money, but we already spent 100,000. I got here in this folder. I got 10, and I got.
Thank you for promoting.
I got 10, and I got probably 5 more that are waiting for me on my email. What are we going to do?
So are you promoting them?
Oh, Mayor. What
Are you promoting them?
No, I'm not promoting them.
I heard you were. So that's not what we're here for.
It's for everyone.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Thank you.
no, you can't. I have the floor.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, I have.
So what are we going to do, Mayor?
Huh?
You didn't promote the other ones?
I move to table this item till we find out what all the additional items that are gonna be. And I wanna make sure that we all agree on, you know, what Mr. Machado gives us. You know, I wanna find out what it is, you know, that we need. What are items that we can and we can't pay? If this is gonna be something that the city must do. Okay? So I move to vote and call for the question.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
before you table it, go ahead and cancel the request. We don't want the request, okay? Just forget about it so you don't have to worry about it. We'll take care of it, okay? Forget about the request. We don't want it. Thank you.
I move to table.
What for?
Second. All in favor? Aye. All against? I didn't hear you guys.
You're asking me.
Yes, sir. Mr. Bonilla?
No, that's fine. Just a question because we tabled it. She says, no, thank you.
She's abstaining.
Yeah, and so, okay. So let's say that she gets the funding for all this, for what she's asking for. We still have to go back and ask for the in-kind for the police officers and all that.
That's right. You know, we're looking at an item where city manager does not have an idea what the in-kind is going to be. It's like approving a party without security. That's the reason I'm doing it. It's not that I don't want it. I want it. But it's approving something without security. That's why I want to table it. So I motion to, all in favor? Aye.
No.
Bonilla? Aye. Mr. Reyes, I hear you? Okay, all against, oppose?
No.
You were staying.
You excused yourself from not voting on it. That's.
Yeah. Okay, motion
Either
passes.
way, it's just a.
I don't know why we're
It's a table.
tabling it if I'm requesting you to just cancel the request. So why are you tabling it? I don't see the point.
You already abstained to it, and I want to get it clarified, Ms. Melendez.
And
That's what
another meeting and another, and then table it again, and
Look at,
this is a game or?
no, it's not a game.
You're not really
It's
serious.
not a game, okay? So we'll move to orders. Consider and possible action of orders 2023-07-036, an order of the Council of the City of Nogales, Arizona, committing local fundings as leverage for a FY 2023 Community Development Block Grant application.
So moving.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Item B, consideration and possible action of order 2023-07-037, an order of the Council of the City of Nogales, Arizona, approving the intergovernmental agreement, IGA, with Nogales Unified School District Number 1 and SUSD related to the use of facilities, parks.
So moving.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. C, consideration and possible action of order 2023-07-038, an order of the City Council of the City of Nogales, Arizona, authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with Nogales Unified School District Number 1 for the reimbursement of the salaries and employees related expenses for fire medical service for school district events.
So moved, Mayor.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. All opposed? Motion passes. I move to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Meeting is adjourned.